Standing in a grand doorway, young Winnie prepares to face her family council. A soft gulp sounding occurs as she formally announces the start of the meeting. The council convenes to discuss the official expulsion of Gwynedella from House Crochet. Looking small and terrified, the silver-haired girl trembles before the silent, judgmental nobles. A heavy thud sounding echoes as a noble labels her an embarrassment to their lineage. The council members mock her as a spiritless beggar who doesn't belong in their family. Winnie reflects on her unease, having anticipated the cruel words of the gathered nobles. The girl realizes that today will likely be her final day within the estate walls. She knows the council believes she is unworthy of being Pave Clissue's descendant. The facilitator observes that everyone has spoken and prepares to finalize the council's decision. A rustle sounding accompanies the call for those in favor of her expulsion to vote. A quiet sniffle sounding occurs as she vows not to cry in her father's presence. She lets out a sharp gasp sounding upon seeing her own father's hand raised. Staring in disbelief, she realizes that even her father has voted to cast her out. A final thud sounding confirms the unanimous consensus to expel the girl from the family. She is informed that she must forfeit the use of the household's most honorable name. A vision of the legendary founder, Pave Clicue, appears amidst a flurry of flowers. The family legacy is defined by their unique capacity to form contracts with powerful spirits. These spirit contracts manifest differently for each descendant based on their innate elemental attributes. Other children in the house effortlessly summon spirits of fire, wind, and water. Winnie remains the only one unable to summon even the lowest tier spirit for her contract. As she prepares to leave, the blue-haired Aquas approaches her with a mocking smile. Aquis winks and warns her not to address him so casually now she's an outcast. A splash sounding occurs as he douses her with water as a final insulting act. Shivering in her wet clothes, she listens as Aquis calls the attack a farewell gift. He mockingly tells her she should watch her back when she leaves the house's protection. Aquas notes he has never heard of anyone surviving after losing the family name. A slam sounding marks the gates closing, leaving the child abandoned outside the crochet estate. Standing alone in the rain, the girl realizes they have truly kicked her out forever. A soft sob sounding escapes her as she wishes she could have said goodbye properly. Shaking her head, the girl resolves to accept she is no longer part of the family. A rustle sounding follows her into the dark woods as she ponders her survival alone. Narrated as a failure, the 11-year-old girl wanders without any spirit affinity or home. A growl sounding from her stomach reminds the hungry girl of her increasingly desperate situation. She lets out a startled gasp sounding as she spots something unexpected near the ritter. A rustle sounding occurs as she searches through the dark bushes for something to eat. A soft plop sounding accompanies the discovery of a single potato left on a cloth. Finding her favorite food, she wonders if a kind soul prepared this meal for her. Noticing a squirrel, she kindly asks if the cute animal would like to eat together. A soft munch sounding occurs as she offers a piece of her food to the squirrel. A happy giggle sounding follows as she watches the small animal enjoy the food. Feeling safer, she thinks there might be no reason to be afraid in the forest. Resolving to be brave, the girl prepares to start walking toward her new future. A sharp flinch sounding from the squirrel signals a sudden threat appearing from the shadows. A rustle sounding startles her as she asks the squirrel if it disliked the potato. A quick thump sounding reflects her racing heart as she senses someone lurking behind her. A sudden grab sounding occurs as a hand lunges from the darkness to seize her. A quiz appears from the shadows, taunting her that he warned her to watch her back. A loud splash sounding follows as he cruelly declares she is unworthy of their name. Sinking into the cold depths, the girl sees two mysterious glowing figures approaching her. Sinking into the freezing water, Winnie wonders if those men were truly her father's subordinates. Floating in the depths, she realizes that the cruelty of the outside world remains the same. A distant memory flashes of her standing small before the imposing and judgmental Clisue family. As a younger child, Gwynedella marveled at the beauty of the estate's vibrant, blooming gardens. She recalls the cold indifference of the crowd when she was eventually cast out and abandoned. Sinking further into the dark abyss, her consciousness begins to fade within the cold, silent water. A sudden, bright flash sounding occurs as a mysterious, mystical energy begins to envelop her body. A regal woman with long purple hair and a dark floral gown appears within the void. The spirit observes that her physical form has finally begun to move after a long slumber. A sharp splash sounding accompanies Winnie's sudden gasp for air as she fights the river's current. Floating beneath the surface, the girl wonders what is happening as her golden eyes begin glowing. The ethereal, purple-haired woman stands majestically, her presence radiating an ancient and powerful magical aura. Narration explains that the woman severed her worldly ties and became a spirit over a century ago. Soaking wet on the riverbank, the girl stares in total confusion at her sudden and miraculous survival. She briefly wonders if she has been reincarnated before dismissing the idea as an unlikely possibility. Closing her eyes, she decides to search through the original body owner's remaining and fragmented memories. Flashes of her public expulsion and the loss of her name confirm her tragic family history.
She feels herself falling through a mental abyss as the realization of her desperate situation sets in.
Standing atop a glowing magic circle, the girl's spirit angrily denounces the nobles as cruel fiends. Extending a glowing hand, she declares the bullying of a talentless child to be utterly inexcusable. Identifying herself as the founder, Pave Closiu, she swears to pass judgment on her wicked descendants. She resolves to strip the family of the spirit blessing they value above all other things. A soft whoosh sounding occurs as she fails to manifest even a tiny spark from her palm. She realizes the small, malnourished body lacks the mana required to handle any high-rank magical spells. Despite her current inability to produce fire, she refuses to let her enemies go unpunished. A devious chuckle sounding escapes her as she begins plotting a new way to restore her power. The scene shifts to the bustling and elegant streets of the wealthy town of Klobatel. Townspeople gossip loudly about the massive fire that broke out at the Closiu mansion last night. They speculate that a fallen silver candlestick in the wine cellar started the massive accidental blaze. Hiding under a hood, Winnie notes that no one will notice items missing during the chaos. Approaching a local vendor, the girl politely asks to buy a single piece of his chocolate. A soft munch sounding occurs as she enjoys the sweet treat while walking through the town. She reflects on how she used her remaining mana to stealthily loot the burning family mansion. Walking past the shops, she realizes standard training would take years to reach her former proficiency. Visualizing falling gold coins, she decides her only option is to use wealth to buy mana. She plans to acquire a dragon heart, one of the most powerful mana-boosting elixirs ever known. A sharp creak sounding echoes as the hooded girl enters a quiet and dusty auction building. Reaching up, she pulls a hanging rope to signal for service at the main front counter. A man appears, questioning what business a young lady could possibly have at an auction house. The blonde man looks down at her with a condescending and bored expression, clearly doubting her. He warns the hooded girl that this is not a place where children can wander in. Glaring at him, she asks if she truly looks like just a little girl to him. A sharp, sounding escapes the man as he is suddenly overwhelmed by her crushing intimidation. Shaken, he nervously wonders why a child possesses such a terrifying and heavy air of authority. Changing his tone, he agrees to take her inside and leads her through the dark hallway. A red-haired woman rings a service bell and welcomes the visitor as an esteemed new customer. Winnie dumps an array of high-quality jewels onto the counter, stating her intention to sell them. The appraiser examines the treasure while Winnie inquires about the rare items in today's special auction. The girl looks surprised upon hearing about a legendary spirit user's item that keeps returning. Asked for a price, she confidently demands 50 million for the entire collection of stolen jewels. The appraiser asks if selling the jewels so cheaply is acceptable, but Winnie insists the surplus is a brokerage fee. A hand firmly presses a stamp onto the document, confirming the transaction will proceed exactly as Winnie requested. Handing over a receipt, the gloved staff member officially welcomes the young girl to the Pika auction house. Holding her ticket, Winnie is encouraged to enjoy her time within the elegant walls of the establishment. A cloaked man watches as the silver-haired girl walks past him in the auction hall. The cloaked man narrows his golden eyes, focused intently on the small figure moving nearby. Winnie suddenly senses a sharp sensation, as if someone is watching her from the nearby shadows. Startled, the girl spins around quickly to scan the busy room for her hidden watcher. Nobles and guards mingle in the hall, oblivious to the girl's sudden and suspicious glance. Winnie remains convinced that someone was observing her, though she cannot identify the hidden watcher's location. Pulling at his hood, the black-haired man confirms to himself that he has correctly identified her identity. A devious smirk plays on his lips as he notes the familiar and unmistakable feeling. The man questions why the legendary Pave Closiu has finally decided to reappear once more. The auction facilitator gestures to the gathered crowd while apologizing for the delay in starting the main event. An announcement echoes through the chamber, declaring the official start of the Pika Auction's Klobatel branch. The gray-mustached auctioneer prepares to reveal the first item of the day with an energetic flourish. A majestic short sword with a glowing hilt gem is presented as a returned item. Sitting in the front row, Winnie grumbles about Walika while the auctioneer seeks the blade's rightful master. Holding the ornate blade aloft, the auctioneer announces that the starting bid for the weapon is 100,000. Without any hesitation, a small hand reaches up to lift an auction paddle for bidding. Winnie holds her paddle high, her golden eyes determined as she competes for the spirit user's weapon. The auctioneer peers at the young girl, asking if there are any other interested parties for the sword. Darkness falls over the sprawling city of Klobatel as stars begin to twinkle at night. Walking alone, the girl ponders why the public has attached such a grand title to her name. Winnie decides to postpone her investigation, focusing instead on the dark object in her hand.
She identifies the item as a half-dragon's heart fragment, sufficient for her immediate mana absorption and recovery.
A quick metallic click sounding occurs as Winnie skillfully pries the glowing yellow gem from the sword's crossguard. The girl stares intensely at the radiant mana fragment reflecting light into her golden eyes. Winnie consumes the concentrated mana fragment, her entire body beginning to glow with a mystical yellow energy. Groaning in discomfort, she notes that the mana's wild nature matches the difficult personality of its former owner. Pave's spirit manifests, asserting that no mana in the world can surpass her own powerful soul's authority. The girl exhales a weary breath, having successfully absorbed the fragment despite her weak body. Winnie spins around and demands to know who is there as a cloaked figure appears behind her.
She realizes the man must have erased his presence to avoid her careful detection earlier.
Staring up, the girl acknowledges the man's immense strength as he gazes at her silently. A mocking and knowing grin spreads across the man's face before he reveals his identity. Throwing back his hood, Waleka introduces himself with excitement, declaring it has been a very long time. Winnie gasps in total shock, barely able to speak as she recognizes her former disciple, Waleka. Waleka is introduced as a powerful half-dragon mage and the kingdom's only active great mage. Records reveal Waleka was one of 3 loyal servants who served the great Pav Klasiu. Waleka lifts the girl into the air with joy while she dryly observes that he has not changed. He questions why she is currently a child, but Winnie counters by asking if anyone else has her soul. Waleka playfully asks to pinch her cheeks, prompting an angry Winnie to tell him to know his place. Feigning heartbreak, the disciple laments her cold reception after their reunion following a century and a half apart. Waleka asks what has happened, but becomes confused when Winnie admits she does not have the answers. The girl irritably reiterates her ignorance of the situation, leaving the great mage looking dazed and bewildered. Waleka looks down at her with surprise, questioning if his master truly does not know her own cause. He speculates she performed a soul transfer to avoid death, but Winnie threatens to sew his mouth shut. A sharp bonk sounding echoes as Winnie hits him, insisting again she does not know why she is weak. Waleka suggests they investigate her body first, but Winnie declares she has more pressing matters to attend to. The black-haired Waleka asks about her necessary tasks, and Winnie defines her immediate goal as seeking revenge. A vision of the purple-haired Pav Klasiu appears behind Winnie, expressing deep shame over the family's disgraceful current state. The silver-haired girl watches as Pave's spirit swears to strip her descendants of everything until they cannot even beg. In the present, the black-haired Waleka stands behind the girl, pledging to follow her master's will despite lacking details. The silver-haired girl looks down thoughtfully, contemplating her next move after their long-awaited and emotional reunion. Winnie decides she will personally oversee this revenge by using her current body instead of asking for outside help. The black-haired man looks down with a calm expression, asking her where she intends to travel to next. Looking at the town below, Winnie explains she must acquire more mana-boosting elixirs and artifacts to restore her power. Waleka looks at her with a serious expression, reminding her that he must bring punishment upon those fools soon. Winnie dismisses him for now, stating she will contact him once her revenge is complete and tells him to leave. A large, jagged speech bubble shouts for her to wait as Waleka stops his master from departing so soon. The silver-haired girl stops and looks back over her shoulder, curious about what has suddenly caused his distress. Waleka looks deeply pained, lamenting that she is leaving so soon after they have finally met again after so long. Close-up panels show Waleka's tearful face as he asks if she knows how he longed for her for 150 years. A sharp, rhythmic squeeze sounding occurs as Waleka clenches his gloved fist, stating that just being with her is enough. From an overhead view in the plaza, the girl begins to address him as Wali as they stand together. In a flowery background, Waleka gently takes her hand and apologizes for his overly emotional and clingy behavior. Winnie looks down with a solemn and soft expression, telling him that she acknowledges and considers his deep feelings. The girl looks up with massive, sparkling golden eyes and a small, sincere smile that reflects her hidden kindness. Waleka asks if he can have a hug, and a sudden, energetic grab sounding occurs as he lifts her up. Winnie hugs him back with a content smile, noting how he became a demanding, spoiled child while she was away. The silver-haired girl continues to hug him, suggesting that if he wants, he can travel with her for a while. A small, stylized panel shows the two in a bubbly atmosphere as a joyous la-la-la sounding fills the air. Waleka laughs heartily, and a sudden, loud burst of laughter sounding escapes him as Winnie reacts to his high energy. A sharp, jagged bubble has Waleka asking what is in her stomach, followed by a loud, sudden thud sounding. Waleka, sporting a large bump on his head, cheerfully suggests they eat together before parting ways, but Winnie refuses. Waleka leans in with a devious grin, asking if she wants to know about the new chocolates released during her absence. The background fills with images of sweets as Waleka describes the latest honey syrup and ganache-filled praline trends. Small angel chibis fly around as Walika explains his inventory surplus from a recent distribution venture, capturing Winnie's attention. Walika laughs with his eyes closed, suggesting that he will leave it to her to rate the chocolates while sampling. Winnie throws her arms up in excitement as Walika lifts her, declaring that she cannot decline such a delicious offer. Walika laughs joyfully while Winnie holds up one finger, stipulating that she will only stay for a single day. Standing atop a glowing magic circle, Walika holds Winnie as a massive, powerful whoosh sounding signals their sudden teleportation. The silver-haired girl looks down with a dazed expression, a soft, swirling dizziness sounding as she recovers from the travel. The scene shifts to a green, leafy interior where Walika suggests she try out another treat, and Winnie agrees. Sitting in an ornate chair, Winnie samples a box of chocolates and critiques the nougat's mouthfeel and white chocolate base. A sharp, quick shuffle sounding occurs as the man in the formal uniform sits down and asks to see her work. Winnie notes that a chocolate coating lacks enough butter, and Walika praises her for eclipsing even professionals in the business. A close-up of a chocolate box as Walika offers more, which Winnie deems exquisite and worthy of passing scores. Winnie pauses with a thoughtful expression, realizing she has forgotten something important amidst the distraction of the delicious sweets. A close-up of the chocolates accompanies Winnie's realization that her goal was gathering elixirs in Klobatil, prompting her questions. Walika looks up with a surprised expression and a small sounding, questioning why she is suddenly asking that. The silver-haired girl looks at him with a wide-eyed and stunned expression, asking him what he means by his response. A map reveals they are in the capital city of Kupram, roughly 3,000 kilometers away from her original destination. Winnie facepalms in total despair, realizing she messed up and that his half-dragon nature allowed for such effortless travel. Walika notes that returning to Klobatil in her weak child's body will be quite the hurdle and offers his help. Winnie looks exhausted and dismisses the offer for now, stating she will work out a plan after getting rest. Walika laughs cheerfully, telling her that he will take her to a bedroom if she is feeling sleepy and tired. Winnie stands with her eyes closed and arms crossed, a soft, rhythmic snoring sounding as she falls asleep while standing. The black-haired man stares at her with a stunned and silent expression, surprised by her ability to sleep on command. Looking down at the sleeping girl, the black-haired Walika notes that she has already fallen fast asleep. Walika carries the silver-haired Winnie through the hallway, a soft, lifting sounding occurring as he moves. A bright sun shines over the brick manor as the cheerful, rhythmic chirping of birds fills the air. Winnie stands in a new dress, irritably accusing Walika of letting her sleep late on purpose. Walika argues children need sleep, but Winnie dismisses his sophistry and prepares to leave immediately. The black-haired man calls out to his master, his expression surprised as she turns to depart. A sharp, quick grab sounding occurs as Walika holds out a small, lavender-colored drawstring pouch. A soft, rhythmic thud sounding follows as he secures the pouch of necessities onto Winnie's dress. Walika offers to accompany her for the family's sake, but Winnie bluntly rejects his request. Walika asks if things are the same with Sel, but Winnie claims total ignorance regarding them. Winnie declares she wants nothing to do with the gloomy elf, prompting a startled reaction from Walika. Walika imagines the elf performing experiments, while Winnie dismisses his delusions with an annoyed expression. Walika questions her priorities, while the silver-haired girl stubbornly insists on taking her leave at once. Winnie looks back with a faint smile, telling him to use a messenger bird if needed. Exhaling a weary breath, Walika wonders which of them is actually more likely to encounter trouble. Smiling warmly, the black-haired Walika bids a final, respectful farewell to his master as she walks away. A sudden, sharp spin sounding occurs as Winnie stops and looks back with a focused expression. The silver-haired girl stands alone, her attention caught by a mysterious and ethereal presence nearby. Winnie ponders the familiarity of a pleading voice that suddenly echoes through the quiet morning air. Winnie tells Walika to be quiet as a soft, rhythmic splash sounding fills the mystical plane. The purple-haired Pav Closio appears, acknowledging the silver-haired girl as Gwynedella while standing on water. Amidst floating lilies, a speech bubble reveals that the ancestor has long desired to meet her. The purple-haired woman stands serenely in her flowing white gown, her golden eyes filled with warmth. Gwynedella tearfully begs the ancestor not to reprimand her father, her hands clasped in a plea. Pave tells Gwynedella to calm down, reassuring the child that nothing bad has happened to her. Looking down with a gentle smile, the purple-haired woman asks the girl if she knows her identity. Crying, Gwynedella identifies her as Pave Closio, the founder of the family, while wiping her eyes. The young girl apologizes for taking action on her own, explaining her shock at the ancestor's voice. Pave offers to return control of the body, but Gwynedella politely declines the ancestor's generous offer. The silver-haired girl looks up with massive, shimmering eyes that reflect her deep sadness and sincerity. Gwynedella requests that the ancestor continue using her body instead of returning it to her. A low, somber murmuring sounding occurs as the girl admits she lacks the talent to be a vessel. Pave looks at the child with shock, questioning why she is saying such disparaging things about herself. Gwynedella explains her memories of the ancestor showed no weakness, unlike the life she has lived. Pave is overcome with anger and grief that such a courageous child suffered so much. A soft, swirling splash sounding occurs as the purple-haired woman kneels to be level with the girl. Pave reaches out with a tender expression, her hand hovering near Gwynedella's face in a comforting gesture. Pave laments the family's attempt to kill their own offspring after labeling such a lovely child incompetent. The purple-haired ancestor gazes at the girl with intense resolve, her expression filled with protective motherly fury. Gwynedella begins to object, but her voice falters as she looks down with a pained expression. The girl insists her father wouldn't have hurt her and claims she has no desire for revenge. Pave questions if the girl truly knows the situation as they stand together on the infinite sea. Pave reveals she saw Gwynedella's memories of crying alone while entering her body in the lake. The purple-haired woman asserts that she is the only one who truly understands the girl's hidden feelings. A close-up of Pave's glowing golden eye emphasizes her deep connection to the young girl's soul. Gwynedella looks up in wonder as Pave takes her hand, a soft, glowing warmth emanating between them. The silver-haired girl turns away and weeps, finally feeling the weight of the kindness she has found. Pave pulls Gwynedella into a firm hug, declaring the girl is definitely not a good-for-nothing. Embracing the child tightly, the ancestor tells her she only needs to ask for anything she desires. Gwynedella looks up with tear-filled eyes and a shocked expression, moved by the ancestor's profound recognition. The purple-haired woman smiles gently, stating that she has heard the request loud and clear. The silver-haired girl wipes away a happy tear, offering a content and silent smile. A sudden, frantic call for his master echoes through the dark as Winnie awakens, startled. Woleika kneels before the silver-haired girl, asking with concern if something bad just happened. The black-haired man holds her shoulders, asking her to repeat herself as he listens intently. Winnie explains that the ancestor asked her to uncover the truth regarding Gwynedella's tragic death. Woleika looks utterly bewildered, confusedly questioning the mention of a favor and a sudden death. Realizing she hasn't explained the situation, Winnie looks at the kneeling man with a questioning gaze. Woleika vows to crush the fiends responsible, but Winnie urges him to restrain his extreme statements. The black-haired man rubs his head thoughtfully, prompting Winnie to watch him with an irritated expression. A contemplative silence follows as both characters cross their arms while deep in their own thoughts. Woleika has a sudden epiphany, shouting in realization while Winnie reacts with a startled and jumpy expression. The black-haired man points upward excitedly, claiming that he has just devised a truly superb plan. Woleika reveals the Closiu family previously contacted him, catching the silver-haired girl by total surprise. Surrounded by jewels, Woleika admits to laundering stolen Closiu goods on the black market for years. Woleika suggests he can manipulate the situation to have the family head personally bring them chocolates. A view of the ornate desk accompanies his question about her reasoning for joining the meeting. Woleika holds Winnie within a floral frame, questioning what role would justify her presence beside him. The black-haired man grins deviously, prompting Winnie to suspiciously ask what he is plotting now. Woleika asks his master not to get angry, but she tells him to just speak plainly. Woleika demands a promise while Winnie notes his merchant-like behavior and tells him to hurry up. Looking determined, the silver-haired girl promises not to get angry and tells him to proceed. A close-up reveals Woleika's mouth as he prepares to deliver his shocking and clever proposition. Woleika smiles brightly as he finally prepares to unveil the core of his secret master plan. Winnie screams in total shock, questioning what kind of absolute nonsense he is currently spouting. Woleika flees as Winnie's shadow looms, reminding her that she promised not to lose her temper. The silver-haired girl suggests that it would be better if she simply pretended to be his subordinate. Woleika dismisses the idea as Winnie suggests using powerful magic to change her childlike appearance. Woleika explains that the family head would immediately see through a cheap trick despite her magic. Looking frustrated, Winnie listens as Woleika notes she understands how sharp a spirit's intuition can be. Woleika gestures with 2 fingers, claiming magic is useless, while Winnie asks for another possible way. A floral background frames his reminder that this matter deeply affects the life of the child, Gwynedella. The black-haired man adopts a serious expression, emphasizing the weight and importance of their current mission. Woleika asks if she plans to remain stubborn while the silver-haired girl looks away in irritation. Words stab into Winnie as Woleika questions her resolve and heart regarding Gwynedella's only final wish. Winnie finally agrees to his plan, prompting a joyous cheer and a triumphant gesture from Woleika. A close-up of a hand reaching out accompanies his decision to proceed with the next step. Carrying Winnie, Woleika laughs and claims a real daughter is better than an adopted one. Walika stresses that they must convincingly act as father and daughter to ensure their plan's success. The black-haired man holds Winnie, who reacts with a startled and confused expression to his words. Walika asks why she is surprised and questions how exactly she intended to perform the role. Smiling warmly, Walika asks if it would be bad to treat her like his public disciple. A floral border surrounds the text as Walika playfully encourages his master to call him father. Walika questions why it is so difficult for her to call him by his new title. Winnie screams that it is revolting while the narrator laments the fallen dignity of a great mage. The silver-haired girl glares with a focused intensity, telling Wally not to get too cocky yet. Winnie asks about the timing of the preparations, and Walika assures her it won't be long. Looking curious, the silver-haired girl asks him once more what he is planning for the family. Touching his chin, Walika notes the importance of stage direction and guiding the path of events. Sitting across from her, Walika mentions there is one more thing he wishes to confirm with her. Walika questions his role, asking how much he should be helping the silver-haired girl. Winnie looks back with wide eyes, confused by the black-haired man's mention of help. Walika warns Winnie that destroying the Closeu family requires more mana than she currently possesses. The black-haired man suggests using his own heart fragments to help her acquire mana-raising elixirs. Glaring at him, Winnie reminds Walika that he has already split his heart many times. Sitting at the table, Walika clarifies that he plans to reclaim his existing heart fragments. A cluster of glowing golden heart fragments illustrates the many pieces Walika has already lost. Walika explains that collecting and absorbing his heart-infused artifacts will grant Winnie massive magical power. Holding a glowing quill, Walika notes that valuable magical ingredients are already on his list. Winnie declines the offer, refusing to let the black-haired man waste such precious goods. Walika remains determined, stating he will use his heart fragments to ensure they don't circulate. Twirling the quill, the black-haired man asks if there are any other details to discuss. Winnie confirms there is nothing else as Walika continues to play with his magical writing tool. During a meal, Walika asks Winnie what she wants to do until her schedule is finalized. Winnie ponders seeing how the world has changed during her long absence as she looks away. Smiling brightly, Walika invites the silver-haired girl to go out and explore the town with him. Winnie questions his availability, wondering if there is actually anything worth seeing in the city. Walika takes her hand, promising that the town area is incredibly lively and full of changes. The black-haired man pulls Winnie along excitedly, eager to start their little outing together. Winnie attempts to decline the joint trip, stating she is perfectly fine exploring on her own. Walika pouts as he explains his reasoning, prompting Winnie to question his mention of preparations. Walika notes that appearing together will spread rumors, and Winnie agrees the logic makes sense. Walika pulls her along despite her protest that he is far too excited for the mission. Walika laughs with pure joy, thoroughly enjoying the prospect of their upcoming father-daughter charade. A sudden shimmering glow fills the room as magic begins to transform the silver-haired girl. Winnie's appearance changes completely, revealing a young girl with long, flowing black hair and golden eyes. Looking at her new form, the black-haired girl asks Walika for an explanation regarding the transformation. Walika beams, stating they finally look like father and daughter, and that the style suits her. The girl looks slightly skeptical, wondering why the black-haired man is having so much fun. The black-haired girl reminds him the disguise is temporary as Walika leads her away. Sunlight streams into a grand dining room, illuminating an empty table set for a lavish meal. A close-up reveals a stack of fluffy pancakes topped with whipped cream and fresh strawberries. Delicate desserts like strawberry jelly and a pale macaron are displayed prominently on the table. Walika sits across from the girl, presenting the feast he prepared for his supposedly cute daughter. The black-haired man encourages the girl, now called Cruciel, to eat as much as she likes. Cruciel eats a croissant while marveling at how naturally Walika is playing his fatherly role. Sitting together in the sunlit room, the black-haired girl politely thanks him for the meal. A cute, small version of Cruciel prepares to take a large bite of a flaky croissant. A soft, quick crunch sounding occurs as the little girl happily devours her delicious chocolate-filled pastry. Cruciel looks up with wide, sparkly eyes, clearly surprised and delighted by the taste of the bread. Floating in a dream of sweets, Cruciel reflects on the rich butter and delicious chocolate filling. A soft, gentle wipe sounding occurs as Walika laughs and cleans the girl's chocolate-stained cheek. A low, busy murmur sounding occurs as Cruciel notices the crowd's attention, while Walika happily welcomes the gaze. Walika's expression becomes serious as he focuses on spreading rumors on the largest possible scale. The black-haired man explains that this public attention is exactly what he needs for their plan. Smiling warmly, Walika offers Cruciel some milk to accompany the rest of her sweet breakfast. Cruciel agrees to drink as Walika promises to take her to a special location after eating. A low, muffled sip sounding occurs as Cruciel questions the urgency of their next move telepathically.
Walika smiles mysteriously, telling the girl she will understand everything once they arrive at the destination. They reach a rustic building, which Walika identifies as the atelier of a painter he supports. Walika leads Crucial into his supported artist studio as she asks about the painter's identity.
Entering the atelier, the black-haired girl looks around with a curious and observant expression.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounding as the black-haired girl reacts with total shock to the studio's contents.
Crucial is stunned to find portraits depicting her past self while Walika beams with pride beside her.
The black-haired girl demands to know his reasons for these portraits, but Walika claims personal convenience.
A cheerful tune escapes the black-haired man as the studio's occupant welcomes the arrival of Walika-sama. Adjusting his glasses, the blonde-haired artist notes that it is rare for Walika to bring company.
Startled by the unexpected visit, the blonde-haired painter loses his balance and begins to tumble backward. A loud crashing thud sounding as the painter falls over and sends his papers flying everywhere.
Walika scolds the messy artist, who insists he is uninjured while sorting through his scattered work.
The blonde-haired man kneels down and introduces himself to the young black-haired girl as Grant Milliard.
Grant identifies himself as Walika's patronized painter, while Crucial offers a polite and friendly greeting.
Surrounded by flowers, Walika introduces Crucial as his biological daughter and claims she resembles him perfectly.
Grant reacts with total bewilderment, repeating the word daughter in a state of utter disbelief and confusion.
A sudden electric buzz sounding as Grant questions the biological relation, which Walika confirms with absolute certainty.
Accepting the news, the painter offers his congratulations while noting the young girl's remarkable elegance. Grant observes Crucial closely and agrees she is a spitting image, much to the girl's confusion. Framed by flowers, the black-haired girl looks on with a skeptical expression as the artist scrutinizes her. A quiet moment of mutual observation passes as the painter and the young girl stare at one another. Walika tells the artist he is staring too much, prompting an apology and a question regarding the visit. The black-haired man commissions an immediate portrait of his daughter, showing a sense of urgency for it.
Grant immediately begins cleaning his studio as the black-haired girl watches his frantic movements with suspicion.
A sudden, quick tap sounding as the artist gestures toward a stool and invites his subject to sit. Crucial takes her seat for the portrait while the artist confirms that her position is perfectly fine. Grant tells the girl to relax and claims his memory allows him to memorize anything at a glance. The artist begins his work and asks his subject to ignore his presence during the initial sketch. A soft rhythmic slide sounding occurs as the painter announces that the initial sketch is mostly finished. Surprised by the incredible speed of the work, the black-haired girl eagerly asks to see it. The blonde-haired man presents the sketch, admitting he feels a bit embarrassed about the work being incomplete. Crucial internally notes that the drawing has a magnetic power to pull in attention despite being unfinished. A close-up reveals the detailed sketch of the black-haired girl, which captures her essence with focus.
Grant remains modest about the sketch as both Walika and Crucial observe the artist's impressive talent.
Looking at her likeness, the black-haired girl asks why the artist only applied color to her eyes. A close-up of a golden eye accompanies Grant's explanation that the coloring hasn't clicked for him yet.
The blonde-haired painter explains that his artistic intuition told him not to paint her eyes literally.
A floral border frames Grant's reflection on the strangely clear and translucent quality he perceived in her eyes. The blonde-haired man stands before his easel while the black-haired girl continues to examine the sketch. Realizing the artist can see through to her true nature, Crucial anticipates seeing the finished work. A soft, quick tap sounding occurs as the painter promises to complete the commission and show her quickly. Grant inquires about separate payment for the extra work, and Walika promises to pay him very handsomely. The painter bows deeply with renewed politeness, prompting Walika to tease him about his reaction to money. Grant reacts with bashful joy to the tease, while Walika clarifies that it wasn't a compliment. The pair takes their leave of the studio as Walika thanks Grant for his continued hard work. The blonde-haired artist stands alone in his atelier, surrounded by the portraits of his mysterious patroness. A soft, quick turn sounding occurs as Grant shifts his gaze back toward the easel in his studio. An aerial view shows the artist standing alone amidst the creative clutter of his workshop floor.
Walika enthusiastically plans a trip to a clothing store, while Crucial finds his excitement completely overbearing.
As the sun sets on the horizon, the pair reflects on their visit to 6 different boutiques. Sitting in the dining room, Walika explains that their outing was essential for spreading rumors quickly. Eating her meal, the black-haired girl accuses the man of simply making excuses for their fun outing. The black-haired girl looks up with a wide, sparkly golden eye full of wonder. Sitting at the dining table, Crucial asks the black-haired man about an interesting structure outside. Walika identifies the building as the Cuprim viewing platform while casually holding his wineglass. Framing a tall tower, Walika criticizes the ostentatious building as a hollow attraction for tourists. Walika offers to visit the platform, but Crucial declines, finding the description quite underwhelming.
A sudden silent realization occurs as Crucial hears the name Gwynedella echoing in her mind. A flashback reveals a joyful silver-haired girl named Gwenadella standing happily amidst white flowers.
A purple-haired woman observes the silver-haired girl, noting she was previously locked away in solitude. Scenes of a happy family playing at dusk illustrate the warmth the city can offer.
Startled by her own thoughts, Chrysile stands abruptly, causing Walika to ask what is wrong.
Chrysile decides they should go out immediately, and the black-haired man happily leads the way. Looking over the sprawling city, a voice notes that the view is truly something special.
Laughing with joy, Walika lifts the black-haired girl up to admire the expansive city view. A narration bubble expresses how the view becomes even more beautiful when seen from the top.
The silver-haired girl looks on in awe, her face illuminated by the bright, golden scenery. Standing beside the girl, the purple-haired woman promises there are many more beautiful places. The purple-haired woman describes the dazzling, vibrant nights within the capital city of Regia.
Gwenadella listens intently as the woman describes the gorgeous view from the top of the tower.
The city comes alive in narration, depicting elegant women in plazas and busy workers with cargo. The purple-haired woman explains that one can feel the restless energy of the city's inhabitants. Smiling softly, the silver-haired girl finds the descriptions wonderful, even before seeing the actual places. Floral patterns frame the purple-haired woman's promise to show the girl every beautiful world location. Walking toward a bright horizon, the woman and the silver-haired girl leave the platform together. Looking back curiously, the young girl asks why the woman would do so much for her. The purple-haired woman explains that Gwenadella deserves to enjoy everything the world has to offer. Surrounded by light, the woman calls her the most beautiful child she wants to hold. The purple-haired woman reaffirms her commitment to fulfilling all of Gwenadella's heart's desires. Against the starlit sky, the woman mentions her own wish and asks for Gwenadella's attention. The silver-haired girl gazes upward with curiosity, wondering about the nature of the woman's wish. The purple-haired woman smiles with a serene and deeply affectionate expression toward the young girl. High above the city, the two figures share a quiet moment on a shimmering magical platform. Looking down at the girl, the woman questions if such a simple request is truly enough. Examining the woman's hand, the silver-haired girl notes that the request seems very easy indeed. With eyes full of hope and wonder, Gwenadella smiles brightly toward her purple-haired companion. Returning to reality, Walika asks if Chrysile was able to speak properly with the silver-haired child.
A close-up of Chrysile's golden eye reveals Walika's observation that Gwenadella is finally opening up.
Walika carries Chrysile through the evening air, emphasizing the importance of the progress they made. Surrounded by glowing camellias, the black-haired girl confirms they had a very good talk together.
Walika laughs heartily, stating that a grand display is absolutely necessary for such a celebration.
Snapping his fingers, Walika triggers a spectacular explosion of colorful fireworks across the night sky. From behind, the pair watches as the dark sky is illuminated by shimmering purple fireworks. Beaming with pride, the black-haired man asks Chrysile if she finds the fireworks display amazing. Chrysile looks away dismissively, telling him not to be moved by such simple things yet. Watching the display, Chrysile reflects that the viewing platform isn't as bad as she first thought. A loud, heavy thud, sounding as a massive stack of documents, is dropped onto the desk.
A sudden, sharp bang sounding as Walika reacts with visible distress to the overwhelming paperwork.
Frantically sorting through papers, Walika complains about being dragged into handling these trivial office contracts. A soft, quick tap sounding as a finger points to the rules on a contract sheet. A red-haired woman reminds him of his own decree, leaving a frustrated Walika in shock. Reddish-haired Secretary Lanier calculates Walika's long absence and demands he account for the mounting workload. Walika trembles in terror as Lanier sternly explains the burden placed on others to cover for him. The silver-haired girl observes the one-sided scolding as Walika desperately attempts to apologize for his negligence. Flashing a nervous grin, the black-haired man attempts to flatter Lanier by praising her unique reliability. Lanier remains unimpressed by his charm, reminding him she even had to handle his daughter's specific paperwork. Seated quietly, the silver-haired girl sips her tea while the adults continue their heated professional dispute. Shifting her attention, Lanier addresses the young girl with a formal title, catching her completely by surprise. Lanier introduces herself formally as the secretary, surrounded by a gentle, floral atmosphere of polite respect. Reaffirming her identity, the reddish-haired woman bows slightly while expressing her genuine honor at the meeting. The silver-haired girl silently acknowledges Lanier's sharp intellect and her clear understanding of the present situation. Lanier outlines her duty to tend to the girl's needs during this strictly confidential family mission. With a professional yet kind gaze, the secretary requests a moment of the young girl's undivided attention. Lanier reveals the primary concern involves the girl's hair, causing the silver-haired child a moment of confusion. Framed by light and flowers, Lanier explains that the girl's current hair color presents a significant problem. Lanier warns that the Clishu family head might see through the magical disguise Walika previously applied. To ensure the deception holds, Lanier proposes the more permanent solution of directly dyeing the girl's hair.
The silver-haired girl pauses to consider the suggestion, her expression softening into a moment of quiet reflection.
Memories of a simpler time surface, showing the silver-haired girl smiling brightly under a clear blue sky.
The flashback continues as she looks away pensively, the bright scenery contrasting with her internal state.
A faint smile touches her face as she recalls the rare moments spent with her own family. Agreeing to the plan, the silver-haired girl gives Lanier permission to proceed with the intended hair dye. Lanier's sharp eyes catch Waleka neglecting his paperwork again, prompting him to frantically resume his writing. The secretary threatens to relocate the girl if the black-haired man cannot maintain his professional focus. The transformation is complete as the girl's long hair is now a deep, lustrous black color. Lanier explains the maintenance routine for the new hair while the girl considers the hurdles of her role. The secretary leads the way toward the dressing room to begin the next phase of the girl's make color. Waleka attempts to join them with a cheerful expression, hoping to escape his overwhelming desk work. Turning back with a cold glare, Lanier warns Waleka that his progress will be judged upon her return. Frustrated by his lack of discipline, Lanier punctuates her point by roughly crumpling a piece of paper. A sudden, sharp bang sounding occurs as a hand slams onto the desk, reinforcing Lanier's growing impatience. Lanier presents a document detailing 94 days of accumulated leave she has sacrificed for her job. With an intense, shadowed expression, the secretary declares her intention to finally claim every single day off. Waleka is left speechless and paralyzed with fear by the terrifying resolve of his normally composed secretary. Lanier ignores his distress and departs with the girl, leaving the man to his mountain of documents. Entering the dressing room, Lanier asks the black-haired girl for her opinion on the pre-selected outfits. The young girl reacts with shock as Lanier unveils a vast collection of elaborate and ornate Western dresses. The black-haired girl worries the clothes are too seasonal, flashy, and impractical for her stay at the mansion. Lanier acknowledges the concerns but maintains a confident, slightly smug expression as she prepares to explain. The secretary clarifies that magical climate control and social status justify the selection of these elegant garments. The young girl continues to struggle with the idea of wearing such burdensome clothes for her age. Looking at her reflection, she admires the beauty of the outfits while doubting they truly suit her. A memory of her silver-haired self reinforces her belief that such elegance is beyond her reach. Suddenly filled with unexpected resolve, the black-haired girl demands to wear every single one of the outfits. A soft, quick slide sounding occurs as the girl slips into a sturdy brown boot with a red ribbon. A rhythmic rustle sounding occurs as the final adjustments are made to a large, decorative red bow. The black-haired girl stands fully dressed in a green ensemble, looking like a different person entirely. Lanier softly utters the name Gwynedella, watching the girl's reaction as she tries to adjust to the style. A quick, graceful turn sounding occurs as the girl displays the outfit, tentatively agreeing that it looks impressive. Noticing a hint of hesitation, Lanier questions if the girl genuinely dislikes the choice of clothing. Lanier compliments the girl's new outfit and reminds her it is truly her own physical body. In the mirror, the silver-haired girl notes her original features and credits her beauty to the ancestor. Reflected in the glass, the silver-haired girl admits she once felt foolish for her shy, timid behavior. Surrounded by dresses, the black-haired woman agrees with the girl's observation about her current change in personality. The ancestor explains that her presence in the body fundamentally alters the girl's behavior and outward appearance. The silver-haired girl accepts this reality with a look of quiet resignation as she listens to the explanation. Shifting the conversation, the black-haired woman suggests that the girl try to bring her own consciousness to the surface. The woman explains that such an action would make the distinction between their two identities immediately clear. Floating in a blue light, the silver-haired girl hears the woman's reassurance about the suitability of her dress. A sudden, sharp gasp sounding as the woman encourages the girl to try reclaiming control over her body. The woman realizes the girl is unsure how to proceed, prompting a stammered response from the silver-haired child. With a bright smile, the black-haired girl offers to guide her companion through the process of surfacing. Lanier interrupts, assuring the girl that she is under no obligation to force herself out if she is uncomfortable. The secretary emphasizes that there is no need for force, causing the black-haired girl a moment of surprise. Hearing the secretary's reasoning, the black-haired girl pauses and acknowledges the validity of her protective point. A brief reflection reveals that Gwynedella was frequently compared to others while living at her own house. The woman feels guilty for pressuring the girl, realizing she meddled too much while trying to show her worth. Looking downcast, the black-haired girl laments that she completely disregarded the young child's actual feelings. With a pained expression, the woman sincerely apologizes to the silver-haired girl for her earlier lack of consideration. A sudden, energetic shout sounding as the black-haired girl vows to never let such a mistake happen again. Later, Lanier serves tea while the black-haired girl confirms that Gwynedella has graciously accepted her heartfelt apology. The woman thanks her secretary for the timely intervention that prevented her from making a major social blunder. Curiously, the black-haired girl asks how Lanier was able to sense Gwynadella's feelings without hearing her voice. Lanier smiles warmly, explaining that her intuition comes from having a younger brother close to the girl's age. The revelation about Lanier's sibling catches the black-haired girl off guard during their quiet tea time together. Lanier describes her brother's past struggles with family shame, leading the woman to reflect on the complicated situation. Moving on to the next task, Lanier reviews the agenda for the girl's upcoming training and formal education. The secretary mentions providing an education fit for a successor, sparking the black-haired girl's curiosity about the curriculum. Lanier suggests skipping basic lessons for more advanced topics, leaving the girl wondering what those specific lessons entail. The secretary explains that Walika intended to handle the explanation personally, just as the door is suddenly rattled. A sudden sharp click sounding as the door flies open and a voice loudly demands that they hold on. Bursting into the room, a frantic Walika declares that he will be the one to explain the lessons. Both the black-haired girl and the secretary stare in wide-eyed shock at the man's sudden and loud entrance. A heavy, awkward silence fills the room as Walika leans against the doorframe to catch his breath. Flashing a polite but dangerous smile, Lanier asks if her boss has finally finished all of his pending paperwork. The secretary sarcastically praises his concern before declaring her intent to take all of her accumulated vacation days. Terrified, Walika begs for a moment to speak with the girl before he returns to finish his daunting workload. In a playful demonstration, Walika offers to teach his master the detailed history of the continent's past changes. Walika explains that this education is vital for her role as his daughter and includes necessary etiquette training. From across the room, Lanier firmly reminds him that his professional duties must be completed before any teaching begins. Walika attempts to dodge his work with various excuses, citing a sore back and a short attention span. A sudden, sharp, metallic shing sounding as Lanier unsheathes a katana, causing Walika to freeze in pure terror. Dejected, the man trudges back to his office while the black-haired girl mockingly labels him a big slacker. A sudden, sharp thud sounding occurs as the atmosphere becomes serious during their quiet, private conversation. Lanier bows deeply, apologizing for her disciple's immature behavior while thanking the girl for her ongoing patience. Following a summary of current events, the black-haired girl prepares to ask a serious question about her family. While writing in her journal, the girl asks why the Clusio family has fallen into its current state. Lanier explains that a power struggle followed the Great Mage's disappearance, causing internal strife and the loss of magic. The loss of research and broken bloodlines meant that people eventually abandoned their hopes for the development of magic. Lanier concludes that since the era of Great Mages ended, spirit users have become the focus of the continent. Narration explains that the Closiu family rose in status due to their high affinity for spirits. The black-haired girl explains that her contract with the Spirit King blessed her family with spirit control. Lanier looks downcast, suggesting that the divine blessing might have been the source of their misfortunes. Lanier recounts how the third family had used deceitful tactics to claim power after the first head died. A framed portrait depicts the stoic profile of a man from a previous family generation. The woman notes that the third head prioritized ability, seeking a successor who could master Pave's blessing. A young girl walks alone through a hall as Lanier describes a society that loathed the weak. The black-haired girl questions public perception, while Lanier notes that being a spirit user would simplify things. Looking annoyed, the black-haired girl questions why that guy allowed her pride as a mage to be ignored. Standing in the library, Lanier explains that Walika could not easily interfere with the fate of his descendants. The black-haired girl processes the explanation with a serious, thoughtful expression on her face. Leaning over the table, the girl expresses her disdain for being categorized alongside mere spirit users. Lanier suggests ending their session for the day, to which the black-haired girl politely agrees and offers thanks. Lanier offers her assistance with research just as Walika comes running down the library hall in a panic. From the doorway, Walika calls out to announce that he has finished reviewing and approving every single document. Holding a black folder, Walika excitedly explains that he also drafted the details for their upcoming schedule. The black-haired girl looks skeptical as Walika hands her the folder containing his newly developed plans. A quick, soft flip sounding occurs as the girl reads about a celebration to announce her as successor. Shocked by his seriousness, the girl realizes Walika truly intended for her to pass as his daughter. A close-up of the girl's wide golden eye captures her stunned realization regarding Walika's true intentions. Walika envisions himself introducing the girl to high society as his legitimate daughter and chosen family successor. Narrating the plan, Walika describes using his black market influence to invite powerful figures, including the Clusio head. The man imagines a grand party where he proudly shows off his daughter to the gathered nobility. Looking over the papers, the girl concludes that they will use the party to expose the close you truth. Setting a deadline, the black-haired girl commands Walika to execute the entire plan in exactly 1 month.
A sudden, sharp patan sounding occurs as the girl closes the folder, praising the plan's high success rate.
Walika panics, arguing that a month is far too little time to establish her social identity as his daughter. Ignoring his complaints, the girl asks Lanier how long it will take to prepare and deliver the invitations.
A sudden, sharp crackle sounding as Lanier estimates that magic and pigeons will finish the job in 3 days.
Walika remains frantic, stressing the extreme difficulty of organizing a large-scale event on such a tight schedule. Lanier remains perfectly composed, suggesting that most of their logistical problems can be solved with sufficient funding.
Lanier notes the deadline is reachable with a large budget, prompting Walika to ask if he is just money.
Looking at the man with blank expressions, both Lanier and the girl wonder if he is anything else. Standing with newfound authority, the black-haired girl declares that she is counting on them for the busy month. A sudden, sharp patan sounding occurs as the door closes behind the girl as she leaves the room. A soft, quick karoo sounding occurs as the girl turns her head while walking down the quiet hallway. Looking out the window, the girl thinks that life will finally return to normal once the mission ends. A close-up reveals a focused amber eye belonging to a woman with long, flowing purple hair. Reflecting on her situation, the purple-haired woman stands by the window and wonders why she was summoned. During dinner, the girl asks about party preparations, while Walika jokes about the harsh deadline she set. Walika confirms everything is proceeding smoothly before mentioning he has brought a specific gift for his master. Walika mentions the arrival of heart fragments, but the girl tells him to leave them and get back to work. Walika insists on staying, explaining that he must personally supervise the absorption process after being away so long. The girl questions his autonomy, while Walika notes that his supervision is necessary to prevent any potential accidents.
A sudden, sharp paka sounding as a chest opens to reveal 3 glowing yellow heart fragments on silk.
Holding the chest, the girl senses a surge of powerful mana emanating from the small, radiant fragments. Looking into the box, the black-haired girl concludes that the current amount of fragments will be sufficient. The girl looks down with a soft, sincere expression and quietly expresses her gratitude for the items. The girl stands alone in the center of the grand hall, illuminated by the light of the chandelier. A sudden, sharp crack sounding occurs as violent energy surges around the girl as she begins the absorption. A sudden, sharp gong sounding as Walika rushes into the room, loudly shouting for his master. The girl gasps for air, noting that a long-forgotten sensation caught her by complete surprise. Walika observes that the intense mana flow would have destroyed the circuits of any normal human. The girl explains her soul's traits remain unchanged despite being in a younger, different body. Walika points out that his master has not yet absorbed every heart fragment he provided. He asks why she hasn't taken the final step to become a high-level mage already. She argues that a 9-year-old high-level maid would cause immediate and dangerous public suspicion. A sudden loud fa sounding as the exhausted black-haired girl yawns during their late conversation. Walika notes her obvious tiredness and suggests she should finally go to sleep for tonight. The girl agrees to rest and asks Walika what his plans are for tonight.
Walika offers a charming smile while promising to personally escort his master to her bedroom.
Looking at him, the girl quietly reflects on his nature as an incessant, annoying busybody. A soft, quick puni sounding as Walika playfully pokes the sleeping girl's soft, round cheek. A soft, quick sue sounding as the girl sleeps deeply while Walika watches over her. Later, Walika smugly asks if listening to his advice was the right choice after all. Sighing at the window, he remarks on how much trouble his young master gives him. The scene shifts to the library where the black-haired girl finds magic history highly suspicious. A soft, quick moo-moo sounding as she frowns, noting the strange flow of historical magical events. She notes that while practical magic evolved, general and common magic have declined significantly overall. A soft, quick sounding as she decides to investigate further after current matters are resolved. Her deep research is interrupted by a sudden, sharp hunger after using her brain so much. A sudden, sharp dawn sounding as she examines a chocolate tart that Lanier brought for her. A soft, quick umu sounding as she decides to use this chance to test her power. Concentrating, the girl desires a warm tart as a magical glow begins to surround her body. A sudden, loud bang sounding as the chocolate tart begins to steam with fresh magical heat. She celebrates the success of her word magic, which successfully altered reality to her specific liking. From the library entrance, Walika calls out to her, asking if she has a spare moment. Walika enters the library and asks if his master has a moment for some urgent business. He explains their 1-month deadline leaves no time to waste on unnecessary or long delays. Walika mentions something she needs to do, prompting the girl to ask for more specific details. He insists she must practice calling him her father before the upcoming celebration and debut.
A sudden, loud ba sounding as the black-haired girl reacts with immediate and visible disgust. A sudden, sharp gi sounding as Walika playfully begs her to try saying it just once. The girl realizes he isn't joking, while Walika stresses that they are running out of time.
A soft, quick sigh sounding as the girl stares in wide-eyed, sweating disbelief at his request.
A soft, quick fwa sounding as she hesitates, struggling to utter the words he requested earlier. Walika laughs, complaining that her voice is far too low for him to hear her properly.
Infuriated, she calls him a dummy, wondering what will happen if Gwynedella hears their awkward conversation.
Gwynedella suddenly appears behind her, confirming she just woke up and heard their entire conversation. Walika continues to pester her, claiming he cannot return to work until she says the word.
A sudden, sharp pen sounding as Walika presents a quill, suggesting she read it aloud instead. A soft, quick kucha sounding as the girl stares at the word dad written on paper.
A soft, quick fuzz sounding as a vision of the young white-haired girl appears suddenly.
A soft, quick sue sounding as the white-haired spirit girl playfully leans over her master's shoulder.
Walika ponders a new strategy while the black-haired girl suddenly calls out his nickname, Wally.
A soft, quick Nico sounding as the girl smiles radiantly, looking completely innocent and very sweet.
Walika looks visibly stunned and nervous as the girl prepares to speak another unexpected line. She gleefully notes that no one will care what she says from such a cute body. The girl tells Gwynedella to listen, then addresses Walika as her dear and respected ancestor. A sudden, loud ta-da sounding as the girl cheekily asks if he really wants her to call him dad. Shocked voices echo through the library as a question about what was said rings out loudly.
Walika questions the need to accommodate the girl while she finds his constant pestering quite annoying.
Closing her eyes, the black-haired girl explains the importance of teaching the child to regain consciousness.
She reflects that the child will eventually return to the body once the family issues are settled. Cheerful, the girl tells the child they are like family due to her own mental age.
The girl finds the idea of an old woman calling her own disciple father truly pathetic.
High in the clouds, she admits her own failings and offers the child freedom to choose.
Standing alone on a shimmering blue surface, the white-haired child remains silent and contemplative.
The white-haired girl closes her eyes peacefully against the backdrop of a bright, clear blue sky.
Looking away, the small girl expresses deep doubt about whether she can provide any real help.
Reassured by the voices, the girl decides to give the suggestion a try, despite her nervousness. A sudden, quick flinch sounding occurs as the girl tries to move her fingertips and prepare for a greeting. The white-haired girl looks bewildered and dazed, wondering how she is supposed to offer a greeting. Standing before the tall man, the young girl ponders the best way to address him for the first time.
A close-up focuses on Walika's intense, sharp eye as he looks down at the small child. Walika offers a friendly smile and asks the young girl to confirm her name as Gwynedella.
Looking small and nervous, the white-haired child timidly offers her first hesitant morning greeting to the man.
A sudden, sharp swish sounding occurs as Walika cheerfully introduces himself as her temporary father.
A sudden, soft pat sounding occurs as the man gently places his hand on the girl's head.
Walika proudly declares that she is now the daughter and successor of the powerful half-dragon.
A sudden, quick turn sounding occurs as Walika lifts the girl's chin to meet his eyes. A sudden, soft pinch sounding occurs as the man requests a bright smile instead of a downward gaze. A sudden, loud ah sounding as the young girl forces a wide, blushing smile for the man.
Walika looks visibly taken aback and surprised by the sudden change in the girl's demeanor.
Excitedly, Walika brags about the smile while his master tells him to stop embarrassing the child.
Walika acknowledges the difficulty of the situation and decides to lead the way to build their bond.
Standing tall, Walika reaches out his hand and invites Gwynedella for a walk in the garden.
A sudden, soft, fidgety sounding occurs as the girl shyly holds his hand and discusses her love for flowers.
As they walk, Walika asks for her opinion on using gorgeous roses to remodel the grand garden. Looking out with a smile, Walika describes his plans for the upcoming garden renovations this summer.
The young girl stares up at the man with wide, curious eyes as he continues to speak.
Hidden laughter occurs as the girl realizes Walika is much better at being a father than her master. Walking together, Walika explains that true family is defined by small, shared moments like holding hands. Gwynedella feels a pang of sadness, remembering that her biological father never once held her hand. Moving through the hall, Walika notes that bond and affection matter far more than mere blood ties. He credits his master for teaching him the true meaning of family, despite being a lonely hybrid. Against a backdrop of white flowers, a soft question asks if she would become a real daughter. Walika looks at the small child with a sincere, gentle expression while waiting for her reaction.
Stunned by the unexpected offer, the white-haired girl stares at the man in total silence.
Walika explains his high standards for family and how he hasn't found a fit until meeting her. He reflects on his past, noting that his master saved him from a life as a ruthless monster. Walaika admits he never would have known the joy of being cared for without his master's guidance. He expresses a deep desire to teach the girl about family during their time living together. A sudden, soft sob sounding occurs as the overwhelmed child begins to cry at his kind words. The man's large hand squeezes the girl's tiny hand firmly, offering her comfort and silent support. Gwenadella walks beside him with a downcast head, unable to stop the tears from flowing down.
Walaika shifts the mood, suggesting they end the serious talk and simply enjoy their walk together.
He gently reassures her that there is no need to rush her decision regarding his proposal.
Internally, the child reflects on how incredibly kind and considerate the man is being toward her feelings. A single tear falls as the white-haired girl finally looks up with a soft, grateful smile. Walaika leads the young girl down the carpeted hall, their stroll coming to an end.
Walaika acknowledges her difficulty with the title while she humbly apologizes for her hesitation. He reassures her that time will heal all, expressing gratitude for her honest feelings today.
She promises to reflect on his offer, much to the man's delight and visible joy. As evening approaches, Walaika notes the late hour and his need to return to duties. He offers her more time in the garden, reminding her to return before night falls.
A soft, quick wave sounding as the young girl bids the man a cheerful farewell.
A soft, quick, slowly sounding as the girl's eyes drift shut amidst a floral background. A sudden, sharp sparkle sounding as her eyes fly open with a new, golden intensity. The master praises the child's performance, apologizing for the pressure she placed on her earlier. Observing the girl's brighter mood, the master notes the positive effect of granting her autonomy. With the naming issue resolved, the black-haired girl focuses her attention on the next objective.
She sets her sights on a powerful elixir, essential for reaching her peak magical potential.
In her study, the girl reviews maps, deciding that her quest must lead her beyond Kupram.
Research notes detail potential sources of magic, including rare plants and high-level magic beast essences.
A sudden memory strikes her as she prepares for the arduous journey that lies ahead. A vision of the past shows a white-haired man holding a leaf beside a woman. The memories explain that while not a mandragora, the plant still holds significant magical essence.
She recalls the man leaving the plant for local animals, though its location remains hidden.
The girl hopes the site is still concealed, trusting luck to keep the treasure safe.
A sudden, sharp sound sounding as she prepares to investigate the location without any delay. A soft, quick puff sounding as she conjures a small messenger bird to alert her guardian. A soft, quick flop-flop sounding as the avian messenger flies toward the sunset sky. Dressed for travel, the black-haired girl confidently prepares to set out on her secret mission. Magical energy streaks across the purple sky as she travels through the rugged mountain range. Reaching a high peak, she marvels at the untouched beauty of the landscape from ages ago.
A soft, quick ping sounding as she casts a detection spell to avoid any future nagging.
A sudden sharp turn sounding as she detects a mysterious presence lurking in the nearby area. A caped man appears, accompanied by a small spirit, investigating the magical fluctuations he sensed. Hiding, she identifies him as a spirit user, noting the middle-tier companion at his side. Addressing her ancestor, she remains calm about the spirit, certain that they will remain undiscovered. The man orders his spirit to scout Mount Lepus, suspecting the presence of roaming magic beasts. As the spirit approaches, the master reassures the nervous girl that their presence is undetected. She reveals a binding spell restraining her power, making her invisible to lesser spiritual entities. A soft, quick flap sounding as the spirit passes by her hiding spot in the brush. Watching the spirit depart, she smugly reminds her companion of the accuracy of her prediction. She claims that only a spirit king could hope to perceive her true, immense magical power. Feigning hurt, she asks if her words were doubted, as the chibi girl appears overwhelmed. A soft, quick clang sounding as she gathers concentrated magical energy between her gloved hands. She boasts of her skill, having altered the teleportation formula to evade detection by any spirits.
A sudden, loud, bright sounding as she initiates a search for the elusive belladonna plant.
A golden bud appears, remaining in the exact location she remembered from her previous life. A sudden, bright shining sounding as she prepares to claim the plant in the absence of beasts. A sudden, loud whoosh sounding as the girl spots the glowing pink flower in the distance. Leaping through the air, she descends toward the branch where the magical flora is nesting. A vision shows Selbitaus arguing with the elf, criticizing Hayron's choices regarding the precious elixir. The girl reflects on Hayron's quiet disagreement, recalling his soft, knowing smile during the conflict. She suspects he intended to show respect to the proud elf despite the surrounding criticism. Walking through the sun-drenched woods, she trusts his gentle heart to guide her success once more.
Radiating joy, the girl carefully holds the magical pink flower as it glows in her palm.
Returned home at sunset, the ancestor's voice celebrates their timely arrival as promised.
Exhaling deeply, the black-haired girl decides to take a much-needed break after the long day.
Turning sharply, her companion points out that she was supposed to be gone only an hour. A sudden loud coming sounding occurs as Walika looms over the child, greeting her with a sharp look.
Panicked and flustered, Gwynedella stutters while wondering why the busy man is present right now.
Walika begins to explain his reasons, his expression remaining stern as he looks down at her.
Backed by crackling energy, the man scolds his master for venturing out alone without proper notice.
Sweating nervously, the girl listens as he criticizes her vague messenger pigeon note about her location.
A sudden, loud roar sounding occurs as the man describes his tense wait for her return.
A sudden, soft sounding occurs as the man demands to know the depth of her concern.
Walika warns of rising magic beast sightings, though the girl insists she can defend herself easily.
Smiling timidly, she tries to soothe his anger while her companion notes his persistent grudge. A sudden, soft yup sounding occurs as the girl asks her ancestor for advice on handling rage. Closing his eyes, Walika remains firm while the internal voices prepare a plan to appease him. Shocked by the suggestion, the girl reacts to the idea of calling her stepfather Dad. Pondering the strategy, she realizes the emotional impact it might have on him during this conflict. Approaching tentatively, the girl begins a humble apology while struggling to utter the intended affectionate term. Turning toward her, the man looks bewildered as the child stammers through her hesitant address. A sudden, sharp stab sounding occurs as Walika rejects her effort, calling her thinking shallow. Dismissing her, the man expresses deep disappointment over the worry she caused him today. A sudden, soft sigh sounding occurs as the man prepares to end the conversation abruptly.
Desperate to fix the situation, the black-haired girl shouts the word for father with all her might.
An absolute silence follows her outburst as the echo of the title hangs heavily in the room.
Feeling dizzy, the child stutters in confusion while the man questions her sudden change in behavior. The child personality quickly takes the blame, claiming she was the one who suggested the idea. Tearing up, the girl apologizes for making the man even angrier with her meddling behavior. Seeing her distress, Walika panics and waves his hands, claiming he spoke without any reservation. He frantically reassures the sobbing child that her involvement is welcome and his anger has vanished. Leaning in with visible excitement, the man asks her to confirm her choice of address. The internal voice praises the girl's performance, feeling a massive weight of tension lift. Smiling brightly, Walika encourages the child to say the word again for him to hear. Looking up with wide eyes, the girl timidly offers the requested title once more in a whisper. A sudden, soft pat sounding occurs as the man gently places his hand on her head. Radiating joy, Walika promises to be a parent she will never regret having. The ancestor voice notes the success, deciding to reclaim control of the girl's body temporarily. A sudden, quick pop sounding occurs as the girl's eyes regain their golden, confident intensity. The man notes her quick return to normal as the master personality humps with satisfaction. Walika suggests they reconcile, asking for the specific reason she traveled to the mountains. She displays the magical plant, which the man recognizes as a powerful 200-year-old elixir. Sitting together, she explains the elixir will grant her independence from his heart fragments. A sudden, soft humph sounding occurs as she refuses to return his fragments, keeping them for emergencies. Walika smiles to himself, noting that his teacher refuses to be honest about her feelings. The master notes the success of their day while the man mentions an upcoming meeting with Mardika. The name triggers a reaction from the young girl, who listens intently as he continues. She recalls the family's past negotiations, while Walika confirms they still maintain strong ties. Noticing his mischievous expression, the girl wonders what kind of scheme the man is planning. Remembering his duties, Walika tells her to avoid further trouble while he checks documents. A sudden, soft warp sounding occurs as the man opens a portal, reminding her to eat dinner. Impressed by his exit, she acknowledges the man's great skill with high-level teleportation magic. A sudden, soft tap sounding occurs as she confirms her own mountain-traveling magic was only partial power. The purple-haired ancestor recalls her past life as an undefeated mage with overwhelming mana and power. Gwynedella asks her ancestor if using magic is as difficult as controlling spirits. The internal voice asks the girl if her interest in magic has suddenly sprung up. Gwynedella wonders if it's okay to like magic. Her ancestor says spirit talent isn't everything. Walking toward the balcony, Gwynedella listens as her ancestor asks if she wants to learn magic. A white-haired girl in a blue dress looks surprised, asking if she is the one chosen. The ancestor explains that the girl already possesses intermediate-level mana and can learn with proper instruction. Stunned, the white-haired child can only offer a soft, breathy sound as she processes the news. Her eyes sparkle with hope as she realizes she might actually have a future in magic. In the present, Gwynedella notes that her banquet preparations and magic training are progressing well. A framed memory shows the ancestor reflecting on the two boys she used to teach long ago. Reading her book, the girl tells Walika she will be ready for their outing very soon. Smiling broadly, the black-haired man stands beside the girl, who mentions their weekly outings together. Gwynedella looks up from her book, asking where their journey will take them today. A sudden sharp chk sounding occurs as the man presents 2 concert tickets with a flourish. The girl stares at the tickets, wondering what kind of event her father has planned. A sudden soft grin sounding occurs as Walika promises his master that she will love the surprise. The scene shifts to a massive, empty theater where Gwynedella internally scolds her father's madness. She wonders how he secured premier front row seats while the man asks for her opinion. Smiling nervously, the child worries if their presence will block the view of other audience members. Laughing, Walika explains he paid for the seats specifically so his daughter could watch from the best spot. Gwynedella smiles timidly while her father boasts, though she internally sighs at his excessive behavior. Closing her eyes, the girl accepts her uncomfortable situation since she has no other choice. A lone performer, the silver blonde primo uomo, stands in a spotlight for the private show. A sudden, quick clap sounding occurs as the girl cheers for the incredible performance she just witnessed. A sudden, quick clap sounding occurs as Walika praises the touching and flawless execution on stage. A sudden, soft whisper sounding occurs as Gwynedella expresses sadness that the curtain call has arrived. Walika leans in, asking his daughter which of the performers she liked the most today. Looking delighted, the girl exclaims that she absolutely loved the acting of the primo uomo. The black-haired man looks thoughtful, simply acknowledging her preference with a calm look. Walika calls out to the silver blonde performer, stating that his daughter enjoyed the singing. Sitting regally, the man orders the actor to sing a song specifically for his daughter, Chrishiel. A sudden, sharp gape sounding occurs as the panicked girl asks her father what he is saying. Walika treats it as an encore, promising the man will be handsomely compensated for the extra work. The primo uomo looks down with a humble expression, hoping the man can understand his position. Walika rests his head on his hand, casually reiterating his willingness to pay a large sum. The performer explains he does not perform for money and wishes to maintain his professional pride. Walika stares intensely, offering 10 million E's and asking the actor for his final response. A sudden, soft murmur sounding occurs as Walika doubles the offer to 20 million S. He claims the actor won't get another opportunity like this, even with his current popularity. Gwynedella scolds her father for being rude while he raises the bid to 100 million S. Walika smiles mischievously, asking the silver blonde man if he would truly dare to turn him down. A sudden, soft falter sounding occurs as the performer hesitates, his professional pride clearly wavering. Gwynedella reacts with frustration, remembering how her companion used to draw attention with strange behavior. A flashback shows a younger Walika running toward a restricted lake while his master watches in shock. A sudden, quick crack sounding occurs as the half-dragon boy ignores signs and runs onto the water. The purple-haired woman recalls how she was always the one left to clean up his messes. Gwynedella shouts an apology to the performer, cutting off her father's relentless bribery. Dragging the man away, the girl insists it was not her intention to insult the singer. Walking away with a sigh, Gwynedella notes her father's tendency to go overboard for her sake. A thought bubble appears, asking for forgiveness for his silly father's recent behavior. Gwynedella clasps her hands together, offering a pleading and adorable look to the crowd. Walika laughs sheepishly in his disguise while the girl promises to provide an official apology. Sobbing, the black-haired child apologizes profusely to the onlookers for the scene they caused. Within a lavish bedroom, a frustrated shout echoes, calling Walika a prat for his actions. A sudden, loud bellow sounding occurs as Gwynedella scolds the man for his embarrassing public behavior. Relaxing, the black-haired Walika tells his master that the entire scene was merely an act. Gwynedella looks skeptical, repeating his claim that the theater outburst was a planned performance. The girl remains stunned by the revelation, her small frame trembling with lingering confusion. Walika explains that he and the actor coordinated the spectacle to fool the entire audience. Grinning, the man boasts that rumors about his doting nature will soon spread through Kufram. Looking down at the theater, he details how her smart intervention perfectly completed their scheme. Walika apologizes for the secrecy, noting her reaction was essential for the plan's success. Embracing the grumpy child, the man predicts that the upcoming banquet will be quite interesting. Gwynedella sighs with exhaustion, claiming his constant antics are shaving years off her life. Laughing, Walika points out that she called him her father quite naturally multiple times today. A sudden soft ack sounding occurs as the girl reacts to her father's teasing on the sofa. A sudden soft waft sounding occurs as a memory of her affectionate address floats by. Blushing, the girl stutters a defense, claiming that starting a task is already half the battle. Looking incredibly flustered, Gwynedella shouts at him to stop bringing up her embarrassing moment. Walika laughs heartily, affectionately calling his daughter an insolent brat for her fiery temper.
Later, the black-haired girl eats a snack, casually asking Wally what he wants from her.
Refusing to go out again, she listens as Walika clarifies he isn't seeking her master personality. With a gentle expression, the black-haired man asks to speak directly with the child, Winnie. The master personality looks surprised by the request, her golden eyes wide with sudden curiosity. A sudden, soft sh-sounding R's as the child's spirit begins to emerge into focus. A sudden, soft sk-sounding occurs as Winnie timidly greets her future dad with a blush. Walika beams with joy, encouraging the child to continue her snack while they speak. Sitting together, the man mentions the banquet and Arcasto's expected attendance in 4 days. A sudden, sharp rattle sounding occurs as the mention of Arcasto causes the child to tremble. A sudden, soft thud sounding occurs as Walika explains he must insult her to reveal Arcasto's heart. In a vision, Arcasto sits coldly as Walika warns of the cruel lies he will tell. Close-up of the red-eyed man, Walika notes that even false words might cause her pain. A sudden, soft thud sounding occurs as the girl's tears fall, overwhelmed by the plan. Desperate to comfort her, Walika shouts his true desire for her to be his real daughter. Stunned, the child stares with watery eyes, processing the weight of his sudden emotional confession. A sudden, soft bow sounding occurs as the man promises to be the best father possible. The ancestor observes that Walika has abandoned his script to express his genuine, heartfelt feelings. The purple-haired ancestor stands behind the girl, acknowledging the surprising sincerity of the man's offer. Amidst background chaos, the ancestor decides that the doting dummy would make a great father. A sudden, soft clench sounding occurs as the girl prepares to respond to her ancestor. Looking at the bickering staff, she reflects on how kind Walika and Lania truly are. Memories of past kindness swirl as the girl wonders why everyone is being so nice. In the background, Lania watches as the child asks Walika for confirmation of her adoption. Walika gazes at her with a stunned, gentle expression, moved by her vulnerable request. He scoops her into a hug, declaring that Lania's witness makes the deal final. A sudden, quick smack sounding occurs as Lania strikes Walika for his reckless travel plans. Overflowing with happiness, the young girl smiles brightly as she finally finds a true home. The purple-haired ancestor looks down pensively, her golden eyes reflecting a quiet and deep contemplation. Seated alone in the garden, Walika focuses on drafting a message at a small, elegant table. Looking weary, the black-haired man pauses his work, his face showing a clear sign of concern. Gwynadella walks through the moonlit garden, asking the man if he had requested a private conversation. Amidst the flowers, one voice inquires if Winnie is asleep, while another confirms she was exhausted. Walika informs his master that he recently received an official report regarding Arcasto's traveling companion. A sudden, loud thud sounding occurs as Walika reveals that Arcasto and Aquise have arrived here. A sudden, soft ha sounding occurs as Walika suggests the two children will surely become friends. Looking annoyed, Gwynadella remembers the blue-haired boy's past rudeness and how he once splashed her. Looking at the letter, the man notes the actors are ready for their upcoming public performance. A sudden, soft ha sounding occurs as the man worries about his master's eventual reaction. Walika teases the child, asking how she would handle herself if she became angry during tonight. Stretching, the man tells her to be careful around Aquis and to return to her room. Walika reminds her she is an old spirit and forbids her from reading in that body. The moonlit mansion stands silent as Walika mentions his concern regarding the child's tired appearance. A sudden, soft ha sounding occurs as Gwynadella sips her tea and calls him a boy. Close-up of her golden eyes, the girl reflects that their long ordeal is almost finally over. Sitting in the garden, Gwynadella notes her current job concludes immediately after the next day's banquet. Lania prepares for the event, noting that the long-awaited day has finally arrived for them all. While Lavinia brushes her hair, the girl confirms that the secret room for Arcasto is ready. Dressed in a fine gown, Gwynadella praises the maid for her excellent work with the preparations. The child smiles with relief, noting she can soon stop pretending to be Walika's real daughter. Lania mentions her upcoming vacation and predicts the man will be heartbroken when the pretense ends. Looking into the mirror, the girl hears Lania address her formally as Madame Favy Crochet. Close-up of Gwynadella, she notes that a barrier protects the secret room from any magical explosions. A subtle, knowing smile crosses the young girl's face as she considers a new and clever thought. Looking mischievous, Gwynadella thanks the maid for the information regarding the room's unique and clever design. A sudden, soft whoosh sounding occurs as Walika carries the child, preparing to identify the important guests. Walika points out the head of Mardika, the chief mage and the keeper of the Western Tower. A sudden, soft rub sounding occurs as Walika warns her to be careful around such perceptive guests. A sudden, quick tup sounding occurs as the girl snaps at him to end his persistent nagging. Overlooking the ballroom, she asks why he is lecturing her during her own formal debut banquet.
Walaika looks serious, stating he only wants her to remember the presence of the other important guests.
The black-haired man warns Gwynedella not to lose her temper when meeting Arcosto face-to-face tonight. He further cautions her against showing her dislike for Aquis, to which the child simply agrees. Aquis follows behind his father, promising to make an effort to be friendly during the social event. Staring from the crowd, Arcosto wonders how the man can act so casually after everything that happened. The red-haired man reflects on Walaika's shameless smile despite the past suffering they both clearly remember. Watching the girl on the balcony, Arcosto recalls the pain Winnie endured before reaching this point. A sudden, sharp freeze-sounding occurs as the white-haired child's spirit assures her ancestor she's okay. The white-haired child looks hopeful, smiling as she considers her future with her new family members. Winnie expresses that she is no longer afraid because she has her ancestor and her father. A sudden realization strikes Gwynedella as she sees a vision of Winnie and the name Crishiel. Walaika approaches his daughter with a charming smile, asking if she is truly enjoying the festive evening. The black-haired girl remains silent, her profile illuminated as she prepares to respond to the man. Smiling brightly, the girl enthusiastically tells her father that she is having a wonderful time tonight. Standing before the crowd, Walaika calls for everyone's attention to begin his long-awaited formal announcement. Looking proud, the man prepares to introduce the special guest who is the apple of his eye. Walaika joyfully presents his daughter to the nobility, describing her as the most adorable child alive. Laughing, the man hugs the girl while admitting he didn't realize he had such a lovable daughter.
Walakai welcomes the nobility to the banquet held in honor of his beloved daughter.
The black-haired man tells a guest to leave their gift with the head mate, Linnea.
Walaika boastfully agrees with the guest's praise, claiming his daughter is the most adorable child.
While Walaika hugs the child, she reflects on how much his grumpy personality has improved. Looking at her doting father, the black-haired child feels she can finally relax a little. A sudden realization strikes as the girl's golden eyes widen in response to a strange feeling. Walaika asks his master if she also sensed the powerful energy emanating from the banquet hall. The man introduces Rayote Ricador, a silver-haired guest and descendant of the legendary figure Hiron. Gwynedella stares at the silver-haired boy with a look of intense curiosity and quiet recognition. Walaika notes that she always had a peculiar fascination with anything related to her student, Hiron. Beaming at the crowd, Walaika encourages the guests to enjoy themselves while he exits with her. The black-haired man suggests meeting the boy, but the child worries about scaring the special guest. In spirit form, the white-haired child asks her ancestor to reveal the boy's true identity. The purple-haired ancestor explains that Rayote is the descendant of her former student, the wizard Hiron. A framed portrait depicts Hiron, whom the ancestor links directly to the history of House Crochet. The white-haired spirit realizes that Hiron was the father of their very first family head. Smiling, the black-haired girl decides she is looking forward to formally meeting the silver-haired descendant. Amidst the lush greenery, a voice respectfully addresses the purple-haired ancestor, Favy, for her guidance. A hidden voice thanks the ancestor, promising that their mysterious errand will not take long. A sudden soft swoop sounding occurs as the blue-haired boy, Aquis, playfully greets the girl. Smiling mischievously, Aquis asks where she's going and complains she never looked his way. Staring coldly at him, the girl silently labels the blue-haired boy a rude and annoying brat.
A sudden soft clench sounding occurs as she struggles to stay calm and avoid a scene.
A sudden soft curtsy sounding occurs as she formally introduces herself to Aquis as Walaika's daughter. Despite her outward politeness, her expression reveals a growing irritation with the boy's bold behavior. Drawing a firm line, the girl asks Aquis to stop using an overly familiar nickname. A sudden soft thud sounding occurs as the boy boldly suggests she call him Kwai instead. The silver-haired boy, Rayote, intervenes and tells Aquis that he has gone quite far enough. Rayote notes that forced friendliness is rude, especially when the other person is clearly uncomfortable. A sudden soft bow sounding occurs as Rayote Ricador introduces himself with perfect and elegant poise. The purple-haired ancestor beams, praising the silver-haired boy for being such a polite and well-mannered child. Rayote confirms he is the fifth great-grandson of Hiron, the man she once taught as a student. Beaming with joy, the girl expresses how truly honored she is to finally meet his descendant. Looking hopeful, the black-haired girl asks the silver-haired boy if they can become good friends. Peeking from behind a panel, Aquis looks stunned by her sudden and friendly offer of friendship. Walaika looks comically distressed in the background, seemingly shocked by the children's quick bond. Blushing slightly, Rayote agrees to be her friend if that is what she truly desires. Walaika suddenly carries her away, warning her that the boys are like wolves sniffing around her. The girl's eyes widen with shock as a familiar and chilling voice calls out to Walaika. Arcasto appears behind them, his red eyes focused as Walika recognizes the man's sudden arrival. Close-up of the red-haired man, Arcasto, who stares with a cold and deeply unsettling expression. Walking forward, Arcasto notes that Walika has already met his son, the blue-haired boy Aquas. Looking disgusted, the child reflects on her hatred for Arcasto as he comments on her introduction. Arcasto offers a fake apology, claiming he didn't mean to interrupt their happy family moment. A sudden soft clench sounding occurs as the girl glares at Arcasto with visible, burning rage. A sudden, loud crash sounding occurs as a thought bubble declares Arcasto a mindless beast. Walika reacts with surprise to the sudden outburst, though he admits the interruption is probably beneficial. Carrying a bag, the girl prepares for action, determined to teach a much-needed lesson.
Walika notes that the medicinal brew worked perfectly, as her mana flow is now completely transformed.
Focused and determined, the black-haired child explains she is absorbing natural energy at an incredible rate. A close-up of Gwynedola's golden eyes shows her focus on the current conversation. Walika looks down with a slight smile as he begins to address his master. Walika playfully teases her about her popularity with the two young boys during the event. The man jokes that the boys have good taste, though Gwynedola remains visibly annoyed. Arcasto comments on the hidden location while noticing the door to the basement room. The red-haired man admires the library, while Walika explains he prepared it for his daughter. Walika holds Gwynedola while she eats, stating he wants her to have a place to play. Arcasto notes how close the two have become, which the black-haired man calls perfectly natural. Gwynedola reflects on his role as a doting father despite his reputation as an arrogant half-dragon. Arcasto asks Walika to reveal the true purpose of their private meeting in the study. Walika smiles warmly, mentioning that he has spent many long years in complete isolation. Hugging the child, the man admits that having a daughter has brought him many new worries. Walika worries about who will protect her after his death, which Arcasto calls a valid concern. The man asks for permission to magically block her ears so the adults can speak privately. A magical seal appears on her ear as Walika notes that they are finally alone. Gwynedola mockingly notes she lifted the spell easily as the man prepares to discuss his plan. Walika declares his intent to choose House Crochet as the first family to establish formal ties. He explains that he trusts Arcasto due to his master's history and asks for his thoughts. Arcasto remains silent for a moment, his expression unreadable as he considers the unexpected offer. The red-haired man accepts the enticing offer, stating it would be an honor to help. Walika notes that both families can benefit from this alliance, while Gwynedola listens in silence. A close-up of the girl's face shows her quiet satisfaction with how the negotiations are proceeding. Walika's expression shifts as he mentions there is one specific thing he finds deeply concerning. The black-haired man smiles mischievously, bringing up the topic of Arcasto's third daughter. A sudden, soft whoosh sounding occurs as the purple-haired ancestor spirit appears before the white-haired child. Favy gently pats the white-haired child's head, looking at the spirit with a kind expression. Looking up at her ancestor, the child spirit expresses her complete trust in the woman's guidance. Arcasto realizes he is talking about Gwynedola, whom Walika describes as being quite problematic. Arcasto claims he took great care to ensure her reputation did not leak to the public. Walika questions the truth regarding her failure to make a pact with an elemental. A sudden, soft thud sounding occurs as Walika questions why he would keep a useless child. The white-haired spirit looks devastated as she hears her biological father's cold assessment of her. Walika continues his insult, questioning why a pathetic child would be kept in House Crochet. Favy turns to the girl, assuring her that she is the only descendant she has acknowledged. Arcasto asks for clarification as Walika's expression becomes cold and calculating. Walika notes that the child was also adopted into his family, while the spirit looks confused.
Walika glares at the man, questioning if he truly did nothing about the girl's lack of talent.
Favy continues to hold the child while Walika discusses the future cooperation of their houses. The black-haired man states firmly that he does not want there to be any weaknesses. Favy hugs the girl, telling her she is precious and deserves love just for existing. The ancestor spirit holds the child's face with affection, continuing to offer her comforting words. A close-up of a child's wide, gray eye shows the depth of her shock and pain. Arcasto acknowledges the man's point with a simple statement as he sits in his chair. Favy remains close to the white-haired child, acting as her protector during the cruel conversation. Arcasto assures Walika that he no longer has any reason to worry about that particular child. Gwynedola looks on with a focused gaze as Arcasto prepares to reveal his dark secret. A sudden, soft thud sounding occurs as Arcasto claims his family already handled the problem. The child spirit is horrified to hear her father describe her as an unwanted burden. Arcasto bluntly admits to the other man that he has already gotten rid of her. A close-up of the spirit's eye reflects her heartbreak upon hearing the truth from her father. Arcasto looks away coldly, stating his belief that the child is currently at the lake's bottom. Overwhelmed by betrayal, the white-haired child spirit questions if her father truly ordered her death. A sudden soft whoosh sounding occurs as the ancestor reacts with horror to the man's cruelty. Favy looks down at the spirit with deep sympathy, struggling to process the father's heartless admission. A sudden soft flash sounding occurs as a blinding light erupts from the distressed child spirit. Glowing with intense energy, the white-haired child cries as a voice desperately calls out to her. Gwynadella stares at the red-haired man, asking if he truly ordered the death of his daughter. Arcasto is bewildered by the question, while the girl demands to know if he ordered her murder. A sudden soft clench sounding occurs as she asks if he intended for her to be drowned. Past memories haunt the girl, recalling her isolation and the mockery she faced for her lack of talent. Her expression darkened by grief, the girl asks once more if her father truly wanted her dead. Arcasto glares back, questioning if the girl couldn't stand being cast out of their prestigious family. Sweat beads on the red-haired man's face as he wonders how she knows these dark family secrets. Looking down at him, Walika calmly tells the red-haired man that his assumption is completely incorrect. Arcasto's eyes widen in genuine fear as he begins to realize the gravity of the situation. Walika presents the black-haired girl, formally identifying her as the red-haired man's own third daughter. With a terrifyingly calm gaze, the black-haired man confirms she is indeed his child, Gwynadella. Trembling in his seat, Arcasto can barely whisper his daughter's name as he faces the impossible truth. Tears well in her eyes as the girl addresses him as father, her voice filled with heartbreak. Looking at him with profound sadness, she admits she once believed he loved her even a little. In her memories, she saw him as a distant figure who cared more for pets than for her. The young child spirit reflects on her desperate wish for even a tiny fragment of his affection. She notes that a single moment of genuine care would have been enough to satisfy her heart. Favy watches in silence as the child spirit yearns for just one word of love from him. Looking up hopefully, the girl believes that recognizing her as his daughter would allow her to forgive him. Arcasto maintains a chillingly indifferent expression, claiming he has no idea how she is still standing there. Responding to her plea with cold efficiency, the red-haired man addresses the girl by her given name. Without a shred of remorse, Arcasto bluntly declares that he never once considered her his daughter. A sudden, soft thud sounding occurs as the girl's world shatters upon hearing her father's cruel rejection. Arcasto admits that his lack of affection made it easy to order her execution at the lake. As the red-haired man begins to justify his actions, the girl sharply commands him to be silent. Rising from her seat with newfound resolve, she declares that she no longer wishes to hear him.
Noticing a terrifying shift in her presence, Arcasto demands to know who has taken over her body.
A sudden soft womb sounding occurs as the girl dismisses his concern while raising a glowing hand. The red-haired man watches with growing alarm as an overwhelming power begins to fill the study room. A sudden loud boom sounding occurs as a massive magical explosion sends the red-haired man flying backward. Surrounded by intricate magic circles, the girl coldly informs her father that he will die today. Arcasto is stunned that a mere child could shatter a high-level elemental barrier with a single wave. A sudden soft swoosh sounding occurs as the girl gathers more mana, her eyes glowing with power. A sudden soft fwat sounding occurs as pillars of light erupt around the room, trapping the man. A sudden soft bam sounding occurs as multiple magical strikes hammer into the red-haired man's defenses. A sudden soft fwat sounding occurs as Arcasto demands an explanation while the black-haired man mocks him. Walika remains relaxed in his chair, telling the red-haired man he needs to understand the true situation. Walking forward, the girl looms over him while the black-haired man clarifies his intent to attack him. Smiling playfully, Walika mentions his plans to purge the rest of the man's treacherous household next. The black-haired man's expression turns lethal as he admits he is feeling extremely vengeful right now. A sudden soft fwat sounding occurs as the girl prepares to unleash a final, devastating magical attack. Adjusting his cuff, Arcasto offers a desperate warning, refusing to accept his defeat so easily. A sudden, soft grin sounding occurs as the girl smiles mockingly while the red-haired man continues his speech. A sudden, soft woo sounding occurs as Arcasto claims he is attempting to exorcise the spirit possessing her. Walika notes how brave the child is while she gathers an immense sphere of magical energy. A sudden, massive boom sounding occurs as the girl challenges her opponent to withstand her power. She coldly labels him an arrogant fool who has already sealed his own inevitable and dark fate. Narrowing her eyes, she focuses on her first goal of rendering the man completely unconscious. A sudden, sharp chk sounding occurs as multiple stone hands erupt from the ground toward her. The stone fingers close firmly around her ankle, attempting to trap her in place during the fight. A sudden, forceful yank sounding occurs as she is pulled downward by the man's earth magic. Walika observes that Arcasto has summoned an elemental to defend himself against the girl's relentless assault. Arcasto describes his summon as a high-level earth elemental, while the massive stone golem materializes fully. He believes his summoned defender should have been more than sufficient to eliminate her immediate threat. A sudden soft hiss sounding occurs as she mocks the man for wasting such an excessive amount of power. A close-up of the girl's glowing eyes shows her intense focus and cold determination to win. Standing tall, the girl looms over the cowering man and his massive, crumbling stone servant. She reminds the man of his earlier threat to cause her harm with a chilling and confident smile.
Arcasto lets out a pained arg, sounding as his stone golem begins to fail under her pressure.
A sudden, soft fwat sounding occurs as Arcasto desperately tries to maintain his spell with a glowing hand. A sudden, loud crack sounding occurs as the library floor shatters under the overwhelming weight of the magic. Leaning back in his chair, Walaika remarks on the chaotic situation as the battle continues to escalate. A sudden, soft ha sounding occurs as the black-haired girl laments the total destruction of the room.
The black-haired girl expresses her genuine fear that a woman named Linnea will kill her for this.
A sudden, heavy dun sounding occurs as a rune-covered stone mass looms over the cowering purple-haired man. A sudden, heavy rumble sounding occurs as the girl floats effortlessly above the shattered remains of the library. A sudden, soft fwat sounding occurs as the girl notices a new opportunity within the swirling magic. A sudden, watery splash sounding occurs as a beam of blue light strikes the rune-covered stone mass. Arcasto is bewildered by the sudden appearance of water magic in the middle of their intense battle. A sudden, soft whoosh sounding occurs as he wonders what the girl is trying to achieve now. She lets out a soft hoo sounding breath, forming sharp ice crystals between her outstretched fingers. A sudden, sharp crack sounding occurs as Arcasto realizes her plan to freeze and explode the water. A sudden, massive boom sounding occurs as the frozen water detonates with incredible force, destroying the elemental. A sudden, soft rustle sounding occurs as she stands victoriously atop the jagged, icy peaks of debris. A sudden, soft whoosh sounding occurs as she reaches her hand out toward the defeated man below. Arcasto is overwhelmed as he feels the crushing force of increased gravity pinning him to the floor. A sudden, heavy plop sounding occurs as he falls, letting out a pained ack during the impact. A sudden, quick thump sounding occurs as the white-haired girl walks calmly toward her struggling victim. She mocks his pathetic display of power despite his formal pact with a high-level earth elemental. Looking down at the cowering man, she bluntly states that he possesses no real magical talent. The girl expresses her deep pity for the elemental forced to serve such an incompetent master. A sudden, soft rustle sounding occurs as the stone golem dissolves into useless dust before them. He lets out a pained sounding while coughing up blood onto his white-gloved hand. The girl's expression remains cold and completely pitiless as she stares down at the broken man.
Arcasto desperately asks why she is doing this and for what possible reason she is attacking him.
She lets out a soft ha-sounding sigh, asking if he truly remains so ignorant of his sins. The girl's eyes burn with contempt as she labels the purple-haired man a total and pathetic weakling. She declares that she is trampling him for his weakness, just as he did to a girl named Winnie. She confronts him about his cruel words regarding how being talentless is a sin against one's blood.
Arcasto warns her that his defeat won't stop the eventual power of the Crochet family.
A sudden, sharp smack sounding occurs as he is silenced mid-sentence, letting out a pained ack. She demands that he never allow the name Crochet to come out of his mouth ever again. The girl promises to purge every participant who had a hand in the death of Winnie. Arcasto lets out a pained ong sounding as she vows that all of them will face punishment. Sweating profusely, Arcasto questions what gives the silver-haired girl the right to treat him this way. A sudden, soft smile sounding occurs as the silver-haired girl confidently asserts she has every right. She clarifies that the very family name he uses is a legacy that belongs solely to her.
Arcasto stares in speechless horror as the staggering weight of her claim begins to sink in.
Favy explains she founded House Crochet 150 years ago and identifies herself as the house's true master.
Favy officially strips Arcasto of his title and family name, permanently expelling him from the household. Walaika adds that the same punishment will be given to everyone who insulted or hurt young Winnie.
Favy coldly declares that she has no room for such garbage within her noble family bloodline. Tears stream down Arcasto's face as he asks if she is truly doing this to him. Favy looks at the broken man with detached curiosity, wondering why he is suddenly starting to cry. Arcasto remains kneeling on the floor, seemingly reaching the absolute limit of his emotional and mental endurance. Favy admits she would normally leave total destruction behind, but chooses restraint for the sake of Winnie. A sudden, soft whoosh sounding occurs as Arcasto asks if she can truly oppose the entire house. Arcasto argues that she cannot defeat the collective strength and deep influence of the powerful House Crochet. He questions if she intends to borrow the half-dragon's legendary power to judge his family members. Arcasto claims the collective house is a power that can overcome even the most lion-like of foes.
A sudden, sharp halt sounding occurs as Favy silences Arcasto's desperate attempt to justify his house's existence. Walaika apologizes to Winnie for holding back while looking at the girl with deep, protective affection.
A sudden, quick chk sounding occurs as Walaika writes a playful apology to Linnea regarding the destruction. Walaika admits Arcasto is right about the family strength while maintaining a relaxed and casual posture. Walaika sends a magical bird messenger, ordering it to fly with great haste to its destination. He compares the treacherous family to weeds, vowing to pull them out by the very roots.
Favy smiles with a dark intensity, thanking Arcasto for making her change her mind about him.
Favy declares that anyone bearing the crochet name will lose all affinity with magical elementals from now on. Arcasto is visibly shaken by the terrifying prospect of losing his family's core source of power. The finality of her decree hangs in the air, spelling the absolute end of the crochet lineage. A sudden, heavy duh sounding occurs as Walaika observes that everything has reached its inevitable conclusion. A sudden, loud whoosh sounding occurs as Arcasto lets out a pained ack during the magical chaos. Favy reminds the cowering man that he was the one who first broke the ancient family promise.
Favy shouts that the Masters of the Blessing will now reclaim the power Arcasto has so shamelessly broken.
A tall man with blonde hair and green attire appears in the middle of the shattered room. The newcomer smiles brightly, radiating a vibrant and cheerful energy despite the surrounding devastation and ruins. He laughs joyfully, his presence bringing a sudden and strange shift in the atmosphere of the room. The blonde man hugs Favy excitedly while she irritably demands that Sylph let go of him. Arcasto recognizes the being, realizing with mounting dread that he is facing a high-level elemental master. The tall blonde man is identified as Sylph, the legendary master of all the world's wind elementals. Sylph questions the broken pact, but Favy explains that the situation has fundamentally changed since the beginning.
Sylph looks closely at Favy, noticing that she is genuinely and deeply furious at the purple-haired man.
He focuses his gaze on her, sensing the immense weight of her current and lethal emotional state. Looking down at Arcasto, Sylph asks Favy if this specific human is the source of her anger.
A sudden, wet cough sounding occurs as Arcasto chokes out a pained guh while spitting fresh blood.
Sylph demands silence while Favy notes that the man's final punishment is not for him to determine. Sylph stands with his hand raised, swirling magical energy around him as he prepares to unleash power. A sudden, heavy rumble sounding occurs as cracks spread across the library floor and the entire manor. A sudden, loud crash sounding occurs as massive chunks of debris fall from the library's ruined ceiling. A sudden, heavy thud sounding occurs as a giant woman with red hair lands in the room. The red-haired newcomer is formally identified as Noes, the powerful master of all the world's earth elementals. Sylph greets Noes cheerfully while she notes that it has been a long time since they met. Favy walks forward with cold resolve, signaling that the time for words has finally come to an end. Standing between the two massive elemental masters, Favy asks Arcasto what he was saying just moments ago. Arcasto kneels in despair as the elemental affinity that once defined him finally vanishes completely. The young girl wonders if the family records were actually true regarding their elemental friendship. Still kneeling, Arcasto weakly asks what will become of the other members of his household. Favy closes her eyes, coldly stating that someone else will soon be deciding their final fate. The scene shifts to a bright memory of the child running toward a long-haired woman. The white-haired girl looks up with wide, hopeful eyes during this soft moment of the past. A long-haired woman praises the child's bravery for remaining awake despite the late hour. A gentle voice reassures Winnie that she ruined nothing and everything is proceeding as planned. Favy's profile remains stern while she insists that the girl's father is the one who should apologize. Standing before the elemental masters, Favy explains that House Crochet currently has no acting head. Reaching out toward the child, Favy officially appoints her as the new head of House Crochet. The young girl is stunned into silence by the sudden and heavy weight of this appointment. Shocked, the child stares blankly as she tries to process the magnitude of her new responsibility. Arcasto is paralyzed with disbelief, his mouth agape at the total loss of his family authority. A soothing reassurance fills the air, telling her there is no reason to feel any discomfort. Favy takes the girl's hands gently, grounding her as they face the future of the house. Favy offers a choice between ruling alone or forgiving those who committed only minor wrongs. The girl begins to speak, her voice trembling as she faces the difficult decision before her. She admits her profound lack of confidence in her ability to properly lead the noble household. Despite her fear, the girl finds a spark of determination while clutching her chest in resolve. She remembers Lania being roughly handled, reinforcing the need for a change in family leadership. A vision of Walika appears, reminding the girl of the support she has from her protectors. Arcasto continues to mutter in denial, unable to accept that his reign has truly ended.
Self questions the man's erratic behavior, while Arcasto screams that this situation simply cannot be happening.
Arcasto's desperate cry echoes through the ruined library as he questions his ancestors' harsh judgment.
The broken man lets out a final agonizing scream of pure despair and mental collapse. The child, addressed as Winadella, looks toward her father as the scene grows increasingly tense. She thinks about how she can easily offer the hollow words and empty smiles he once desired. Floating amidst the debris, she promises to perform the role of a beloved child for him. She commands Arcasto to step down, stating firmly that the headship is no longer his place. Favy watches the exchange with glowing yellow eyes, sensing the child's growing inner strength and authority. The confrontation reaches a peak as the girl stands her ground against her kneeling, defeated father. A sudden, soft sk sounding occurs as Favy prepares a magical strike against the disgraced man. A sudden, loud fwat sounding occurs as the child rushes forward to shield her father. A sudden, soft foosh sounding occurs as she insists on speaking with her father one last time. The girl pleads for her father to stop, her voice filled with a desperate, final warning. She stares him down with a resolute gaze, no longer the cowering child he once knew. Arcasto realizes that his daughter has finally stopped carrying the burden of his own failures. She declares that conditional love is meaningless before asking her ancestor to leave the ruins behind. Turning away, the girl states that Arcasto isn't even worthy of being punished by Favy's hand. A blue-haired boy suddenly appears, shouting in alarm about the total collapse of the manor estate. The boy and the white-haired girl lock eyes, both visibly shocked by this unexpected encounter. He stops in his tracks, looking around the devastated room with a confused and bewildered expression. The blue-haired boy questions her identity, stunned to find that Winadella is actually still alive. He admits his genuine surprise, having assumed that she had already died during the previous chaos. A sudden, quick press sounding occurs as the girl breaks into a cold sweat during the tension. A sudden, soft sk sounding occurs as she tries to hurry past the suspicious newcomer. A sudden, heavy grab sounding occurs as the boy seizes her arm to prevent her departure. A sudden, sharp clench sounding occurs as he notes she is wearing Cruciel's specific clothing. The boy stares intensely, deducing that she used magic to alter her natural hair color. The blue-haired boy taunts the girl, claiming her current appearance is the one that suits her best. A sudden, loud smack sounding occurs as she forces him to release his grip on her arm. The silver-haired girl creates distance between herself and the blue-haired boy in the library ruins. Looking away from the boy, the silver-haired girl calls out for her ancestor to reveal herself once again. The child expresses her confusion and uncertainty regarding the proper direction for her to go next. She stands her ground firmly, ordering the blue-haired boy to step out of her way immediately. Walking past her former tormentor, she declares that she has found a family who truly cares now. A final, silent farewell to her younger brother echoes across the vast and starry night sky. Standing before the ruined manor, the silver-haired girl hopes to never cross his path again. A sudden, soft tap sounding occurs as the child runs toward the elemental masters in the forest. Chibi Favy offers a sincere apology for making her the househead without prior consultation. The purple-haired woman smiles warmly while gently cupping the silver-haired girl's face with her hand. The girl joyfully promises her ancestor that she will excel in her new leadership role. Noahs and Sylph bicker about why Favy treats them with such obvious and harsh disdain. Favy tells the two bickering elementals to be quiet so she can continue talking with Winnie. Favy admits she intentionally suppressed a fellow elemental soul to keep her from interfering today. Noahs prepares a quiet resting spot for Favy amidst the tall trees of the tranquil forest. Winnie assigns Sylph a task while he protests the lack of a place for him to sit. Noahs physically carries the complaining Windmaster away to ensure Favy can rest in peace. Left alone for a moment, the silver-haired girl admires the beauty of the stars above. The purple-haired woman expresses her deep gratitude to the child for choosing to follow her. Looking back at her ancestor, the silver-haired girl insists that she is the grateful one. She thanks Favy for giving her the strength and determination she needed to keep living. Walika collapses onto his desk, overwhelmed by the mountain of paperwork and books before him. The silver-haired girl arrives with drinks, causing Walika to cry out for his master in relief. Walika clings to the child, admitting he has been avoiding work by blocking magical messenger birds. He mentions Linnea, who is currently laughing maniacally while drowning in an ocean of letters. Staring with intense focus, Latinia declares her intention to use all 60 days of her vacation. Walika panics at the thought of being left alone to handle the immense workload without Linnea. Walika hugs the child again while she struggles to keep her balance and her drink steady. Looking at the exhausted black-haired man, the girl feels content with her new life and family. Walika offers a moment of soft recognition for all the hard work they have both finished. The black-haired man frantically searches for his daughter, wondering if she has been lost to the abyss. The purple-haired woman watches over the silver-haired child as she sleeps soundly in her arms. The girl rests in a peaceful slumber, her expression calm and free from her former burdens. Looking toward Walika, the silver-haired girl offers her sincere thanks for everything he has done. Standing in a lavish room, the black-haired man notes that they succeeded because of her efforts. Walika grins broadly, teasingly suggesting that the girl should start treating him with more kindness. The purple-haired woman smiles gently, looking on with a soft and serene expression of satisfaction. Walika celebrates their success with a joyful expression while holding a festive party popper in hand. Winnie sits at a grand dining table covered in an abundance of delicious fruits and desserts. The silver-haired girl beams with pure happiness, her face lit up by a bright, cheerful smile. During dinner, Winnie admits she still feels slightly overwhelmed by her new status as househead.
Linnea agrees that the situation is unusual, but reminds the girl of her unique and powerful position.
Walika explains that even a single powerful individual can exert a massive influence on the world. Winnie looks confused while wearing a sash identifying her as the daughter of the half-dragon. Linnea silences Walika's aggressive protective instincts by shoving her hand directly into his face. Placing a strawberry cake on the table, Linnea declares it is time to celebrate their victory.
Walika prepares to open wine while Linnea continues to insist on taking her long-overdue vacation.
The black-haired man seizes the Windmaster's collar as Favy demands they stop bickering and eat. Linnea enjoys the bouillabaisse and asks if the chef cooked it, but Favy claims the credit. Linnea is impressed by her many talents, but Favy simply calls out her name in humble response.
Walika reveals that Favy used magic because she is actually quite terrible at cooking meals without it.
Following a memory of poisoned food, Favy huffs and insists that magic is a legitimate skill. The purple-haired woman offers to make more food, and Winnie joyfully requests a delicious blueberry pie. Favy presents a freshly baked pie, noting that her magic allows her to cook things very quickly. Emerging with a bright smile, the green-haired man eagerly asks Favy for a slice of the pie. Sylph argues with the black-haired man, questioning if he has forgotten his long-standing presence in the house. Sylph complains about being treated poorly, while Favy suggests to Walika that they should kick him out. Looking at the flailing elemental, Linnea suggests they shouldn't treat an elemental king with such obvious disdain. A soft sk sounding occurs as Linnea offers a glass of wine to the noble master of wind. Sylph is overcome with emotion, looking teary-eyed and happy as he finally receives a moment of kindness. A sudden, heavy thud sounding occurs as the black-haired man wonders when the old fogey will finally leave. Sylph cries out about his loyalty and service to House Crochet over the last 150 years. Winnie eats sweets while Sylph sobs about being treated harshly despite his role in protecting the family. Eating her chocolate, Winnie listens as Sylph boasts that other elementalists would do anything to see him. The green-haired man proudly claims that elementalists with King's Pacts are more powerful than any Grand Mage.
A sudden realization hits the girl as she remembers she forgot to take care of something important.
Winnie asks where Arcosto is currently being held, and Walika identifies his location in the warehouse. The silver-haired girl pauses thoughtfully as the black-haired man looks at her with a curious expression. Standing before a dark and chaotic background, the girl realizes she let Arcosto off far too easy. Chomping on her food, she declares he deserves punishment for talking to her like a common elementalist. She lets out an angry shout, furious that her father dared to insult her with such a title. Remembering her difficult training, she explains that mastering magic is far harder than simply making an elemental pact. A sudden soft sk sounding occurs as Walika notices the girl is eating whiskey-infused chocolate bonbons. Walika realizes his master is drunk from the chocolates, much to the shock and disbelief of Linnea. Winnie rants about aimless elementals ruining society, while the green-haired master protests that he is still present. She aggressively confronts Sylph about his claims, while Walika tells the elemental he should try reading the room. Stretching his arms, Walika admits this chaos is more exhausting than cleaning up the ruins from yesterday. The girl tells Linnea to go get some rest since she has been working without a break. Walika orders his master to stop running away as she tries to head toward the dungeon warehouse. Winnie insists on hitting her father once while the black-haired man calls out for his daughter's help. A vision of the child appears, pleading with her ancestor to realize that Arcosto isn't worth her time. Walika calls his daughter pretty and asks her to do something to calm her rowdy ancestor soul. Child Favy claims she still has plenty of energy, but Walika suggests giving the ancestor a break. The silver-haired girl closes her eyes as she begins to settle back into her own body. The purple-haired soul sits grumpily on the ground, stating she is too full for any more pie.
Winnie sways dizzily as the black-haired man realizes her body has been affected by the alcoholic sweets.
A sudden soft sk sounding occurs as Walika decides it is best to carry his daughter to bed. The girl mentions a discussion she needed with Favy, but her father says it can wait until later.
Winnie agrees to sleep for a little bit while Walika carries her with a warm, gentle smile.
The black-haired man carries his sleeping daughter through the large open doors of the manor room.
A sudden, sharp creak sounding occurs as Arcasto sits chained and broken in a dark, cold cell.
Staring at the floor, the disgraced man mutters that the position of headship doesn't belong to Winnie.
The black-haired man yawns widely the next morning, his mouth stretching as he wakes up for breakfast.
Walking through the dining hall, Walika discusses getting rid of the Windmaster and the previous night's chocolate. Now that the banquet has ended, Winnie asks for news about what is happening in the outside world.
Walika explains that the public believes House Crochet started the recent events due to their amicable social history.
The silver-haired girl ponders the news and asks how House Crochet has reacted to the current situation.
A man in uniform laments that it was utter chaos since they lost all their elemental affinity overnight.
Elf-like monarchs of fire and water stand together, representing the remaining power of the falling house.
A horned figure lies defeated as voices remark that they are now basically on their last legs. The black-haired man thinks he no longer has to worry about House Crochet, only Winnie's final decision.
The silver-haired girl confirms her choice while the purple-haired woman asks her if she has made it.
Ancestor Favy encourages the child to come out as the girl smiles with a peaceful, determined expression. Standing in her lavish dress, the silver-haired girl prepares to face the consequences of her new role. Close up on the child's shimmering eyes as she looks forward with a renewed sense of purpose. The silver-haired girl announces that she would like to move forward with the other members of House Crochet. Clenching her skirt tightly, she argues that the children of the house have done absolutely nothing wrong.
Thinking of a boy being dragged away, she admits she would feel responsible if the children grow up unhappily.
Looking at his daughter with warmth, the black-haired man admits he had a feeling she might think that. The black-haired man notes that it won't be easy and asks if she is okay with uncomfortable situations. Looking down modestly, the silver-haired girl states that she is fine because she is not alone anymore. Winnie apologizes for the tiresome request but insists she wants to try while her father looks on silently. The black-haired man smiles broadly, accepting her choice since he is her father and cannot say no.
Winnie shouts with joy while the black-haired man promises to keep her words in mind for the future.
A sudden, sharp dun sounding occurs as the black-haired man says there is something she must do first. Surrounded by floating question marks, the silver-haired girl looks completely bewildered by her father's unexpected new requirement. A sudden, cheerful jingle sounding occurs as the scene shifts to the exterior of an artist's painting studio. The family group enters the studio as a voice calls out a welcoming greeting to the new arrivals.
A blonde-haired man wearing an apron welcomes them into a room filled with various portraits and art supplies.
Noticing the clean studio, the black-haired man asks what changed while the artist credits Miss Linnea's warning.
Greeting, Miss Crishiel. The blonde man identifies himself as Millard, the painter that they met last time.
The painter stares intently through his glasses, focusing his gaze on the young girl standing before him now.
Millard sees a ghostly vision of the girl's former black-haired self overlapping with her current silver-haired appearance.
Looking closely at the child, the blonde-haired man points out that her hair color has completely changed. A sudden, heavy thud sounding occurs as Walika and Linnea react with shock to the painter's observation. The painter notes her eye color is different too, leaving the panicked girl wondering what she should say. Tears well up in her eyes as she laments her uselessness and wishes Ancestor Favy were here. The blonde-haired painter looks down at the crying child with a soft and empathetic expression on his face. Millard smiles warmly, asking if she remembers that he was unable to paint her hair color last time. A sudden bright beam sounding occurs as the child looks up in wonder at the smiling blonde painter.
The silver-haired girl stares up with tear-filled eyes, touched by the artist's kind and simple words of recognition.
Walika and Linnea stand in the background, looking satisfied and happy as they watch the heartwarming scene unfold. A sudden soft sk sounding occurs as Walika declares that his daughter looks even more lovable and cute today. Winnie looks up and says she wants a family portrait to signify their start as a real family.
A sudden shrill kaya sounding occurs as Walika celebrates the exciting news with a comical and joyful dance.
Calling him Grant, the black-haired man asks for a sketch today before they leave, and Millard happily agrees.
A close-up shows the black-haired man smiling with pure, unadulterated happiness at his daughter's sweet and thoughtful request.
The scene shifts to a cathedral where a priest stands before Walika and Winadella during a formal ceremony. Bavy's soul watches over the pair, reflecting that though they grew up differently, they now walk together. The priest declares that by the powers vested in him, the two of them have officially become family. A formal certificate identifies Walika as the godfather and Winadella Crochet as his legally recognized new goddaughter. A sudden soft sk sounding occurs as Walika laughs, asking Winnie how she feels about their official status. A sudden wet drip sounding occurs as Winnie begins to sob with overwhelming joy while holding the document. A sudden, firm clasp sounding occurs as she hugs the adoption certificate to her chest while crying happy tears. Walika looks at his daughter with a stunned and worried expression, surprised by the intensity of her emotional reaction. A sudden, soft woo sounding occurs as the black-haired man smiles and admits that she scared him. A sudden, soft sk sounding occurs as he notes no one chooses their birth family, but this is different. The purple-haired woman smiles as she confirms their bond, while the black-haired man offers a smug acknowledgement.
A small, silver-haired girl looks up with teary eyes as a dark-gloved hand reaches out.
Hand in hand with the man, the young girl realizes the warmth of finding her true family.
Driven by a sudden burst of resolve, the silver-haired girl prepares to state her bold intentions.
Over tea, Papa Walika listens as Winnie asks what she must do to rebuild their noble house. Claiming her title as head of House Crochet, Winnie declares her intent to become a worthy leader.
Winnie excitedly plans to recruit new members, causing Papa Walika to panic and tell her to wait.
Papa Walika gently pats Winnie's head, advising her to rest instead of rushing into heavy burdens.
Beyond the window, workers manage local repairs as the man mentions there are still matters to finish. A heavy, glum silence falls over Winnie as she processes his rejection of her immediate plans. While Winnie fusses in frustration, the man smiles into his tea, admiring her innate leadership qualities.
Ancestor Favy gracefully approaches Winnie at the table to offer her own comforting and wise perspective.
Tenderly cradling the girl's chin, Ancestor Favy reminds her of past victories and the importance of recuperation. With a thoughtful hum, Ancestor Favy suggests that magic practice might be a better outlet for her. Hope returns to Winnie's large eyes as she hears the suggestion to return to her magic.
She gasps in pure delight, the idea of magic sparking a new fire of excitement.
Radiating joy, Winnie poses amidst flowers and teddy bears as she prepares to greet everyone. Ancestor Favy narrates how Winnie has continued to practice magic diligently on her own since their lessons. Winnie imagines showing off her incredible magical prowess to her cheering father, Ancestor Favy, and Sister Linnea. In the garden, the silver-haired girl stares intently at a lone red rosebud hidden away.
She walks through the estate grounds with a focused expression, determined to put training into practice.
Pausing for a moment, she lets out a soft sigh, feeling the weight of self-imposed expectations.
Her gaze remains fixed on the foliage as she concentrates her internal energy toward the rose.
A light fwat sounding accompanies her sudden reach as she tries to trigger a magic reaction. Straining with a hup and a hi-op sounding, the tiny girl tries to force magic into the bush. A silent, awkward moment passes as a crow flies overhead, highlighting her total lack of results.
Winnie collapses into tears of failure, while Ancestor Favy tries to reassure her that they have been busy.
Ancestor Favy explains that she has actually been practicing since her initial lessons with her ancestor.
Winnie wonders why she cannot manifest magic despite her body already possessing the mana of an elite.
She stares down with a pained expression, struggling to understand the barrier blocking her true potential. Thinking herself untalented and useless, Winnie wails while Ancestor Favy frantically tries to stop her negative spiral. Ancestor Favy asks if Winnie remembers the core difference between elemental magic and true, real magic. A memory illustrates how elemental magic involves making pacts and borrowing the power of a summoned elemental. A teacher explains that real magic is vastly superior, though Ancestor Favy looks slightly embarrassed by her past advice. Ancestor Favy explains that borrowing power leaves a human ordinary if the elemental were ever to disappear. She reminds Winnie how Arcosto became utterly helpless once his elemental affinity was taken away from him. Favy asks the girl to describe exactly how that defeated man appeared to her then. Winnie quietly recalls how despondent he seemed, realizing the danger of relying on external forces. Ancestor Favy points out that borrowed power is never truly one's own to claim or defend. She explains that real magic is like building an internal tower through ascetic training and constant practice. Winnie looks up at Favy, absorbing the lesson that real strength must be cultivated within. Nearby, a vibrant red rose suddenly blooms in full, symbolizing the fruit of patient effort. Wide-eyed with wonder, Winnie gazes at the flower as the concept of internal magic clicks. Ancestor Favy gently tells Winnie that there is no need to rush, and she should take time. Ancestor Favy asks Winnie if she finally understands the core secret of the magic she is seeking.
Blushing slightly, Winnie admits that the truth is finally starting to make sense to her.
Light particles float above the garden path as Winnie walks away, carrying her new understanding. Ancestor Favy encourages herself and the girl to take things slow and believe they can succeed. Smiling brightly against a backdrop of lilies, Winnie resolves to reach her goals shortly. She remains focused and determined, ready to begin the long journey of building her magic. Ancestor Favy looks back, her expression soft as she reflects on the young girl's progress. Ancestor Favy smiles warmly, noting how quickly her talented silver-haired pupil learns every new lesson. Watching the girl, Ancestor Favy notes that as both leader and mage, Winnie is truly magnificent. Winnie gazes back with large, shimmering eyes, absorbing the profound praise from her ancient relative. A gentle, knowing smile plays on the purple-haired woman's face as she looks at the girl. A sudden happy flump sounding occurs as Ancestor Favy lunges forward to pull Winnie into a hug. With an affectionate rub sounding, Favy cuddles the girl, expressing pride in her overcoming past struggles. Blushing with joy, Winnie feels validated knowing Ancestor Favy loves her regardless of her magical skills. Focusing her new understanding, the girl extends her hands toward the bush with a soft fwa sounding. The internal mana flows perfectly, causing a single, beautiful red rose to burst into full bloom. A gentle rustle sounding fills the air as an entire row of vibrant roses blooms simultaneously. Winnie gasps in disbelief, her eyes widening as she realizes she has finally performed real magic. Clutching her hands together in pure delight, the silver-haired girl beams amidst the sea of flowers. Overwhelmed by the sight, Ancestor Favy breaks into comical, streaming tears of absolute joy and pride. Winnie panics and tries to comfort her crying ancestor, worried she has done something to upset her. Smiling through her happy tears, Favy explains that she is simply moved by the girl's success. The girl looks on with quiet emotion, realizing just how much she has grown in such time. Ancestor Favy lifts Winnie high, praising her for achieving this magical milestone through her own strength. Winnie giggles happily as Favy cuddles her, the bond between the two generations growing even stronger. Gazing at the garden, Ancestor Favy suggests they go find Wally so Winnie can show him. Papa Walika stares in shock at the blooming rose, asking if Winnie truly manifested the magic. With a whirring, swooshing sound, Wally intensely inspects the flower while Winnie waits bashfully for his final verdict. A sudden rummage sounding starts as Wally searches his shelves for a special item for the flower. A triumphant ta-da sounding accompanies him revealing a beautiful glass cloche to preserve the precious rose. Winnie admires the magical gift as her father explains it will keep her creation perfectly preserved. Looking a bit weary, a chibi Wally mentions he will draw strength from the flower's beauty. Turning his attention back to his daughter, Wally asks for her help with a new business matter. A grand shalalala sounding introduces a table overflowing with elaborate cakes and assorted sweet dessert samples. Wally explains these sweets come from his distribution business and need a thorough professional taste review. A glum expression crosses Wally's face as he realizes the daunting task of eating them all. With a heavy thud sounding, Wally collapses, weeping that he would much rather be eating savory meat. Letting out a loud "R" sounding, he dramatically tears his shirt open in distress over the desserts. Chibi Wally sobs on the floor as Winnie rushes over, promising to help him finish the task. Sitting at the table, the silver-haired girl begins the review by taking a small, dainty bite. Winnie chews thoughtfully before happily declaring the first sample to be absolutely delicious for their customers. A soft sk sounding follows as she diligently writes her tasting notes while her father praises her. Pausing mid-tasting, Winnie suggests that one particular tart would be much better if it were served warm. A quick ch sounding occurs as Wally offers his magic, but Winnie holds up a hand to stop. With a spark of determination, the young girl insists on trying to heat the food herself. Winnie clears her throat with a serious expression, preparing her internal mana for this practical application. A bright fwat sounding emanates from her palms as she focuses her energy on the cold pastry. A fragrant waft sounding rises from the plate, confirming the tart is now steaming and perfectly warmed. A gentle sighing sound accompanies Wally's wide smile as he proclaims she is now a true mage. Beaming with pride, Winnie holds out a piece of the warm treat for her father to taste. Wally is deeply touched that she remembered his preference for savory foods, yet still shared her success. A quick chomp sounding follows as he accepts the bite from his daughter's fork with a smile. With a chick sounding, he gives an enthusiastic thumbs up, declaring the warm tart to be fantastic. Winnie giggles, privately thinking the food tastes better because she put her heart into warming it up. Looking at the table, Wally wonders aloud exactly when Winnie became so proficient with her magical skills. Winnie looks at him warmly, crediting Ancestor Favy for giving her the courage to believe in herself. The black-haired chibi woman asks Winnie if she learned about self-belief, which Winnie excitedly confirms. A soft pat sounding follows as the man praises Winnie for understanding the lesson so young. Winnie looks worried, admitting she feels she hasn't acted like a proper head of the family. The black-haired man with one yellow eye reacts in disbelief to the idea of her responsibility. The man's past as a formidable warrior in a red cape and brown coat is revealed. He smiles to himself, reflecting on how busy he has been during these recent days. Winnie gasps with a sudden "ah" as a bright idea sparks her imagination. Winnie says she wants to be like Linnea, causing her father to collapse in the background. The black-haired man is flustered, wondering what is so special about Linnea compared to him. Winnie admits she doesn't even know what the head of a family is supposed to do. The man stands up abruptly, shouting at Winnie and asking why she's even worrying about that.
He declares he has been head for a century and invites her to ask him anything.
He boasts about being a half-dragon compared to Linnea, while Winnie looks on with a blank expression. The man asks Winnie if she has ever met the king, smiling with a playful fang visible. Winnie listens as he explains that meeting a king requires an introduction from a grand mage. He claims to be the only grand mage as Linnea runs in shouting for her boss. Reclining lazily, the man asks Linnea what she needs, while Winnie sits quietly at the table.
Linnea informs the man that he has guests, her expression serious and her posture stiff.
The man lets out a curious, as he leans his head on his hand.
He wonders why guests arrived without notice as a hooded figure stands in a dark garden.
A soft murmur sounding fills the air as a group of hooded individuals gathers in the dark. Linnea looks on with a sharp, suspicious gaze, her face set in a stern expression. A quick tk sounding accompanies Wally's arrival as a magic whoosh sounding surrounds him and Winnie.
A cheerful grin sounding follows as the man asks the visitors why they have come to the estate.
A system notification announces the arrival of First Prince Decus Ragnator Onunimum, a blonde-haired man. Ancestor Favy realizes this is a bad sign and asks Winnie for permission to take control. A quiet nod sounding occurs as the silver-haired girl agrees to let her ancestor take over. Winnie's eyes glow yellow as Favy takes control, preparing to observe the intruders carefully.
The mysterious visitors in gray hoods stand silently in the darkness of the estate grounds.
Ancestor Favy notes that Winnie's mother is missing from the group of visitors. Wally greets the prince, who remarks on how dignified the Dragonborn appears despite the circumstances. A chatter sounding accompanies the prince's observation that the estate is clean after the recent accident. The black-haired man's expression shifts to a serious one as he asks the purpose of their visit. The prince clears his throat, explaining he is investigating the banquet collapse and the missing people. A casual rub sounding follows as the man dismissively scratches his ear, unaffected by the news. Looking visibly upset sounding, the prince mentions that the head of House Crochet and his son disappeared. A sharp glare sounding punctuates the prince's claim that he must mediate the conflict between nobles. A sharp chk sounding accompanies the manifestation of ice spears as the prince demands Wally's cooperation. Winnie looks on with narrowed eyes, wondering if they actually believe these knights can threaten Walika.
The prince stands defiantly with his arms crossed while flanked by 2 armored knights.
Internal narration highlights that Walika is a grand mage with dragon blood, far beyond their level. Looking down with glowing eyes, Winnie thinks that the visitors have no idea who they've challenged. Ancestor Favy speaks within Winnie's mind, asking the young girl how she wants to handle them. Favy looks at the gathered hooded figures and asks Winnie how she wants them punished. The ancient woman insists on letting the silver-haired girl decide the fate of their unwelcome guests. A sharp flinch sounding occurs as the blonde prince reacts to a sudden tense magical shift. A heavy crunch sounding accompanies a footstep as a newcomer asks what everyone is doing there. A pink-haired man arrives, chiding his big brother for making a big mistake without the palace. A rhythmic thump sounding follows the newcomer's steps as he reveals the king won't get involved.
A quick chk sounding occurs as the pink-haired man claims he acts only for the royal family.
A bright fwat sounding accompanies the blonde-haired man's visible shock as he flinches from a sudden magical shift. The pink-haired crown prince Honor apologizes to Walika for his brother's behavior while the silver-haired girl watches nearby. First Prince Decus looks down in a cold sweat, visibly trembling as he realizes the gravity of his mistake. The black-haired man addresses the crown prince, noting his bold decision to discipline the first prince before other nobles. Honor smiles as he privately considers the danger of making an enemy out of the kingdom's only grand mage.
Walika asks the prince if he truly expects him to simply forget the events and intrusion of the day.
A sharp chk sounding occurs as Honor draws his sword, preparing to make a formal promise to the Dragonborn. A sudden chk sounding from the armored guards accompanies the start of Honor's official declaration to the gathered group. Standing tall with his blade, the crown prince formally declares that the royal family will no longer interfere with Walika. A hooded figure from House Crochet cries out in desperation, shocked by the royal family's sudden withdrawal of support. A soft sk sounding follows as the prince warns the figure about questioning orders given by the king himself. Honor coldly turns his gaze away, telling the group they must take full responsibility for their recent series of mistakes. A quick chk sounding occurs as the prince asks if there is anything else Walika needs before the royals depart. The black-haired man asks Winnie if they should demand a formal apology from the first prince for his earlier threats. Looking thoughtful with glowing yellow eyes, the silver-haired girl decides that a forced apology is not necessary right now. Winnie privately reflects that making an enemy of a pathetic prince is a waste of time and prefers moving on. Honor accepts her decision with a calm expression, asking her to uphold her promise and stay out of further complications. Turning his attention to the girl, the prince asks if she is the precious daughter Walika recently gained. A sudden, sharp crunch sounding startles the silver-haired girl as the crown prince makes an unexpected movement toward her. A soft chk sounding accompanies the prince kneeling to kiss Winnie's hand as a sign of respect for her forgiveness. With a charming gaze, the pink-haired man introduces himself and tells the girl she can call him Han. The silver-haired girl is left completely stunned by the prince's forward gesture, letting out a bewildered "ah." Visibly annoyed, Walika smiles through gritted teeth as he tells the prince it is time to go on his way. A quick shk sounding follows as Han departs happily while Walika considers how close he came to attacking him. A disgruntled ugh sounding escapes Walika as Linnea suggests he keep his rude personal thoughts to himself in public. A soft whoosh sounding punctuates the man's shift and focus back to the remaining members of House Crochet. A dark smirk crosses Walika's face as he reflects on the unresolved problem of the individuals left behind. A sharp flinch sounding occurs among the hooded figures as they tremble in fear under the man's intense gaze. Walika looms over the group, suggesting it is finally time for the conversation they were so desperate to have. The black-haired man smiles widely with a visible fang as the terrified visitors from House Crochet cower before him. Walika chides them for trying to use royal power instead of begging for his forgiveness when they had the chance. He demands they begin their talk, his expression darkening as he prepares to hold the intruders accountable for their actions. The figures beg for mercy while Walika asks Winnie what she would like to do with the people remaining. The scene focuses on the silver-haired girl's dress as she stands silently, weighing the fate of the hooded intruders. A vision of a beautiful, purple-haired woman appears, her presence glowing with a calm and ethereal energy. A soft blink sounding accompanies the girl's return to the present as she processes her final decision for the group. Standing before her father and the intruders, Winnie announces that she has made a firm choice regarding those people. The silver-haired girl declares that these individuals are unworthy of being part of her family and must be removed. A long yawn sounding signals the start of the next morning as Winnie wakes up at the Walika estate. Walika greets his daughter warmly at the breakfast table, asking if she slept well after the previous night's events. The man encourages her to go back to sleep, but Winnie insists she will be fully awake very soon. Winnie curiously asks if the people from the night before were allowed to return to their home safely. A sudden pff sounding occurs as Winnie spits out her drink when Walika mentions he threw them into prison. Shocked by the revelation, the girl listens as her father explains he handled the situation as she requested. Winnie reflects on a memory of a scarred man, realizing that forced apologies from cornered people are ultimately meaningless. The girl concludes that it is better for their future if they do not give their enemies any leeway. Noticing her resolve, Walika grins with pride at the strong backbone his daughter is starting to develop. Letting out a loud ha 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 sounding, he gives a thumbs up and praises her for being his girl. Winnie suggests that she should personally visit House Crochet to address the matters of her past family. Walika agrees to the trip, though the silver-haired girl mentions there is something else they must do beforehand. Winnie arrives at the estate dungeon, expressing a desire to visit a specific place first. The dimly lit dungeon hallway is lined with heavy iron cells illuminated by flickering torches. Standing before a cell, the silver-haired girl softly greets the broken man waiting inside. Looking down at her imprisoned former father, Winnie acknowledges him with a cold, formal address. Winnie announces her intent to claim leadership of House Crochet and transform the family's legacy. She declares that no member will ever be treated as an embarrassment or mistake again. Staring at the man, the girl promises to build a family founded on actual respect. With quiet determination, Winnie reflects on her journey and confirms her confidence in her success. Leaving the dark cell behind, the girl gives her final farewell to her shackled father. Moving with purpose, Winnie vows to forge her own future using her newfound personal strength. Ready to depart, the black-haired man and Winnie prepare for their next major destination together. The silver-haired girl pulls up her hood, her expression tightening as she prepares for confrontation. A loud whoosh sounding erupts as Walika activates his magic to warp them toward the estate. Wally checks if Winnie is ready while acknowledging the presence of the ancestor within her. Winnie lets out a tired sigh, admitting her dislike for this particular method of travel. With yellow eyes glowing, the girl accepts the necessity of the trip and signals their departure. A rhythmic nod sounding occurs as a freckled guard dozes off while leaning on his spear. A sharp creak sounding startles the guard awake as he senses something approaching the main gates.
A quick TMP sounding follows as the guard calls out demanding to know who is approaching.
Two hooded figures approach the entrance as the guard orders them to identify themselves immediately. Narrative text describes the Crochet estate as a home purportedly protected by an elemental blessing. A soft chick sounding follows as Walika scoffs at the idea of the family's supposed protection. A massive crack sounding echoes as Walika shatters the estate's magical barrier with a single strike. A loud gasp sounding escapes the guard as the two visitors stand amidst the smoking ruins. A sharp tsk sounding accompanies Winnie's complaint about her father's unnecessarily flashy display of power. The black-haired man remains unbothered, telling his daughter to watch as the residents arrive. The commotion draws the attention of the estate's inner members who come running to investigate. A blue-haired man shouts in anger, questioning how anyone could dare to attack their home. A sudden swoosh sounding occurs as the man prepares to attack, swearing to teach them a lesson. A heavy thud sounding accompanies a sudden vision of a young girl being told to stop. A rhythmic ba-thump sounding reflects the girl's racing heart during a stressful memory of her past. A woman in a dark gown stands regally at the top of the grand staircase. A faded memory shows the woman with her son, coldly asking the young girl her identity. In the present, the silver-haired girl stares back with glowing eyes, unaffected by the woman's gaze. The matron, Chiquella Crochet, demands to know why they have entered the estate so violently. A loud thud sounding follows a sudden whoosh sounding as Walika releases an overwhelming magical pressure.
The brown-haired man is paralyzed with shock, barely able to process the immense energy surrounding them.
Walika introduces himself as the half-dragon, standing flanked by two massive and imposing elemental monarchs. The man declares he has arrived with his daughter to deliver word from the elemental king. The entire household is forced to their knees, bowing before the dragonborn and the monarchs. A quiet murmur sounding ripples through the crowd as people realize they are seeing legendary beings. The desperate nobles hope that the monarchs have returned to restore the family's lost elemental affinity. Reaching out with hope, the crowd believes their salvation has finally arrived through these ancient spirits. Looking on with disgust, Ancestor Favy privately mocks the foolishness of the people still holding hope. Walika bluntly clarifies that he was not the one who summoned the elemental monarchs here. With a proud smile, the man reveals that his young daughter is the one responsible. Winnie stands at the center of the hall, the ethereal presence of her ancestor visible behind her. A soft rustle sounding occurs as Walika begins to officially introduce the estate's new leadership. Lowering her hood, the silver-haired girl reveals herself as the rightful head of House Crochet. A sharp rattle sounding punctuates Chiquella's visible horror as she recognizes the girl she once discarded. The silver-haired girl declares that she will rebuild the family as its official new head. Winnie sternly adds that certain individuals will be barred from being part of her new house. Confused murmurs ripple through the hall as the crowd questions how the girl they discarded returned. The blue-haired man shouts his refusal to accept her, accusing her of exploiting the current chaos. A heavy press sounding builds as Winnie remains silent while the man continues his loud verbal assault.
A sharp shash sounding erupts as a red energy whip suddenly constricts around the blue-haired man's throat. With one eye glowing, Walika warns the crowd that they are unworthy of even speaking his daughter's name.
A soft sk sounding follows as Winnie tells her father it is okay and she will explain. Letting out a weary ha sounding, the girl takes a breath before addressing the hostile nobles again. Winnie bluntly tells the group that she does not care whether they approve of her or not. The girl explains her authority is already settled because she has received the house's highest form of approval. Appearing in a burst of light, the elemental king Sylph confirms he has deemed Winnie worthy of leadership.